What's up, man? Check it out. Check it out. What is going on with the people, man? You know King Supreme was gonna come back with some more content, man. It is what it is. Shout out to Virgil Berry. You already know. Hit that like button. It ain't nothing. Salute to the people out there, man. If you want the truth, you in the right place, man. You're in the right place. Right? Because there's a lot of people out there who are not telling the truth. You know, they're too busy kissing up to other races, so they won't tell the truth about anything. Can't trust people like that, man. When you put gang politics over your race, you a sucker. 100%. You know, I would never put gang politics over my race. Never. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Hey, King Supreme coming through with the truth, baby. You know, sit up there and like the show. Reg Dog, shout out to all my people in the chat that tap in with me for these lovely conversations. And I appreciate you all. I truly do. I appreciate you all. It is time to get involved with this certified game. King Supreme in a major way. So let's do it. The game is fluid. When it flows through King Supreme, you already know what I mean. I've been talking about this for a long time, right? You would think that Snoopy Badass was the first to say this, but I've been saying it for a long time. I talked about this yesterday, so we're going to cover some things today that we didn't talk about yesterday, and we might go over some of the same things, but we're going to add some more sauce to it. We're going to add some more flavor to it. You dig what I'm saying? Make sure that you guys bless that like button. If you want some of this solid content from a Los Angeles native, born and raised, you in the right place, homie. See, you're not going to get the truth from a lot of these LA podcasters. You know, the majority of them. Now, people like, shout out to Bobby Ye. That's my dog right there. You know, I don't think but shout out to Bobby Ye. He tells the truth about black and brown issues. So, but this is how I know a lot of stuff in LA is fake. You got channels that never speak up for the people, and they get a whole lot of support on social media. That channel, their channels get pushed through the algorithm. But for some reason, Bobby Yeye, Imperial Vision, you know, his numbers could be way better. His content is real, is informative, and he don't hold no punches. That's the type of content that black folks need to be listening to. Not these content creators who talk about Crips and Bloods and gangbanging all day. Stupid stuff that never amounts to anything. Right? Bobby Yeye can talk about gangbanging, street politics. Then he'll break down some history. He'll talk about mental health. He'll talk about black children and how these environments affects their well, I'll just put it like this. The brother covers a lot of ground when it comes to black issues. I'll just make a long story short by saying that the brother deserves way more props and respect than he gets. So shout out to Bobby Yeye, Imperial Vision, one of the realest brothers out of Los Angeles that's doing content. 90% of these dudes don't tell the truth, and all they talk about is black on black violence. Nonsense. Let's get the people up in here, man. Bless the like button. It ain't nothing. What do you guys think about Milk 7-4? I said this yesterday. Being from a gang means nothing, homie. Oh, I got my put on. I got my put on. Man, I know, man, that don't mean nothing. I'm going to tell y'all something. Anybody can get put on a gang. Seriously, it don't take a lot of. It don't mean nothing in 2026. Let me put it like that. It don't mean anything no more. You know, being from a gang don't make you solid.
Some pictures. That's it. Culture vulture.
Now, in my interview with Milk 74, he said you're pushing the narrative that black people are afraid of.
Man, when people try to say the gangs in LA started to protect the community, that is a damn lie. The Crips was not protecting no black community. That's nonsense. The Black Panthers was protecting the black community. The Black Panthers had programs and things of that nature. But as far as street gangs, hell no. That's one of the biggest lies ever told. The Crips formed to protect the community. Man, please. If you're dumb enough to believe that, you deserve to be on the short bus, 100%. Now, the Black Panthers, yes, the Black Panthers protected the community. The Black Panthers fought against police brutality. The Black Panthers fought against white supremacy. The Black Panthers fought against oppression. The Crips and Bloods never fought against oppression. Now, the Bloods formed to protect themselves against the Crips. I'll say that. But whoever told you that the Crips protected the community, show me the programs and show me the programs that the Crips had to protect the community. Show me the community outreach. Show me the community programs that the Crips had to protect the black community. I'll wait. Some people are dumb enough to believe that. The Crips ain't never had no programs that protected no black community. You crazy. The Crips was terrorizing their own people. They bullied other neighborhoods and forced a lot of people to become Crips. And that ain't no disrespect to the Crips. I just got to be honest about the history. They went from neighborhood to neighborhood bullying people, telling them you need to join the Crips. So no.
Mexicans in LA. And he claimed that you're actually the one who sounded scared. What's your response to that?
I'm the one who's scared of what? Mexicans? How the fuck I'm scared of Mexicans and I'm the only one that's saying the truth? Like, what is he talking about? Like, he don't make no sense. I'm the one that's scared. He don't even make no sense, bro. Like, the nigga speaking out is not the one who's scared. What is he talking about? That's what I'm saying. From the culture, speaking out is talking about that he don't even know what the fuck he talking about, bro. Oh, he the one who sound like he's scared. Like, I mean, you from a hood that share a gang with a whole Mexican gang that's NK on the other side of town. Ed homies. And he don't get no say so. Like I say, he don't even make no sense. He sound like he's the one who's scared of the Mexicans. Like, bro, shut up. That's what happens with like that they didn't even live this life or see life through the lens of real niggas got something an opinion on real. How the fuck I'm the one scared of the Mexicans and I'm the only one getting on this trying to speak up for my black people, something you ain't milk. You feel me? And wake them up and tell them the truth. Like, shut up. You just another trying to COINTELPRO agent trying to cause confusion, my nigga. Don't listen to Milk, bro. Dead homies. Don't listen to Blood. You don't even know what he's talking about. How the only that's up here speaking the truth about these mother scared of them. Man, please. Oh, yeah.
I do agree with that. I agree with some of the stuff that Snoopy said. When you think about Milk 74, a story about a white Hoover is interesting. Everybody wants to know a white Hoover. Let me see what he's talking about. So that alone gained Milk a lot of followers because people wanted to know, do Hoover really put on white people? Is this white boy really from Hoover? So it brought a lot of people to his channel to see, like, is this real? Is this I mean, people looked at Milk like Malibu's most wanted at first. A lot of people were saying, man, he can't be from South Central. I don't believe the Hoovers would put on a white guy. So his channel gained traction based on that. Whoa, a white Hoover, let me see what he's saying. Is he really from South Central, or is he really B-Rab from Malibu's most wanted? So the whole storyline drew a lot of people in.
Milk came from the culture, bro. I don't care about what Milk got to say about anything, bro. I'm the only black that's getting up here telling the
He
truth.
said, all that money gangbangers made in the 80s selling drugs, they should have brought all the properties in the community. Well, unfortunately, money don't come with instructions. So if you give some ignorant people money, they're not going to know what to do with it because they're financially illiterate. They don't have financial literacy. So when you give ignorant people money, they're going to blow it. They're going to spend it on foolish things, jewelry, clothes, and it's cool to buy some of that. But when you spend the bulk of your money on that, now you got a problem. So like I said, money don't come with instructions. Unfortunately.
Proof about the Hispanics and about the black people, bro. Ain't nobody scared of nobody. I'm probably the most fearless around here, though. Dead homies. But since I'm so scared, nigga, Milk, I'll beat your ass, though. You want to fight?
I doubt he wants that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe he does. You know, you never know,
That
right?
nigga can't see me, bro. I whoop Milk ass, bro. He better shut up. That's what I'm talking about. It's the era of the Buster.
Mexican gangs have had wars in the past, but still coexist in the same neighborhoods today. Do you think that proves the situation isn't as extreme as some people might say?
See, this is how you know he an idiot.
And one thing you got to know is this too. The government doesn't allow black immigrants to come over here illegally like they allow Mexicans to come over here illegally. If the government allowed black Africans to come over here illegally like they allow Mexicans to come over here illegally, the black population in the United States will be 30% by now. I promise you, it would be 30% by now. See, foundational black Americans, we didn't come over here illegally. But when you think about Mexicans from Mexico, they come over here illegally by the millions to overpopulate the country. They have babies in this country and their children become citizens. That's how the Mexican population got big. If Mexicans had to come to America legally the right way, their population would be way smaller than what it is today. That's something for you guys to think about. Mexicans were allowed to cross the border illegally and have babies in this country. And when you have a baby in this country, that child is a citizenship. That child becomes a citizen, even if you came illegally, even if you broke the law to come here. So Mexicans broke the law in order to boost their population in this country. I'm telling the truth, and I don't give a damn who likes it. The facts are just the facts. Illegal immigration and open borders is why the Mexican population got so big in Los Angeles. Take away open borders. Take away birthright citizenship. Their population would be super small in this country.
So let me put on my lens to the street culture that Milk don't possess because he's a culture vulture. For one, homie, Hispanic gang.
Yeah, get the likes up, man. Quit playing with my content, man. I know how to tell y'all the same thing every day. Get the likes up and quit playing with the content. All that garbage y'all be watching on YouTube, hitting the like button, and they ain't talking about nothing. Show some love and respect to one of the real ones that tell y'all the truth about what's really going on without sugarcoating nothing.
The street culture that Milk don't possess because he's a culture vulture. For one, homie, Hispanic gang, Sureños, feel me? They only act like they like black people when the black people outnumbers them. That's the only time. And black people are passionate. See, a Hispanic can move into a black neighborhood and start a gang. The blacks accept it because, like I said, they fear them, right? But A black
That's why I disagree. The blacks in LA don't fear Mexicans. The blacks in LA wasn't gatekeeping their communities. They was friendly to everybody. So eventually the Mexicans overpopulated the community. But no, blacks are not scared. They just need more structure and organization and more black pride.
can't go to none of these outskirts cities that's predominantly Hispanic and Sureños and start a gang or even just live there. You understand what I'm saying? So he don't even know what he talking about. But me, they only getting along with the gang because the gang got the numbers over there, like the 18th Street Hoover Locals. They can't beef with the Hoovers and the Hoovers. It's too many of them. You get what I'm saying? So of course they gonna stay in line, but let it get to a point they get deeper than the Hoovers. You gonna see their true colors there. That's what I'm talking about. And awesome for me go.
He's right about that, right? Like even in the county jail, right? When the numbers are even, there's really not that much tension, right? But soon as the Mexicans begin to outnumber the blacks, that's when you're going to see the conflict. That's when you're going to see the Southsiders pressing a hard line, trying to press their issue because they know they have the numbers. If you from California, you know damn well Mexicans start tripping once they have numbers. Anybody who denies that, don't listen to them. They're not being honest with you. They're fraudulent. Anybody that's real and authentic will tell you, yeah, when Mexicans get numbers, that's when they start tripping.
Go look at El Monte. Go look at Rosemead. Go look at Monterey Park. Go look at Corona. Go look at Westlake. What is he talking? Let a black gang or a black family move in any one of these neighborhoods and watch how they get harassed. And I'm
Snoopy telling the truth, man, because blacks don't have their own communities in Los Angeles no more. Blacks got to share their communities with Mexicans. But you got communities where Mexicans don't have to share their communities with blacks. If you go to Downey, if you go to El Monte, La Puente, East LA, if you go to Pico Rivera, if you go to Whittier, you got Mexican hoods out there and they don't share their communities with black people. But blacks are sharing their communities with Mexicans. Blacks in Los Angeles don't have their own communities no more. They're sharing it with Mexicans, bro. Go to Compton. Compton is Mexico. Mexicans are the majority of Compton. Mexicans are the majority of South Central. So let's talk about the areas where you do have black gangs. Those black gangs are still sharing their communities with Mexicans. And in most cases, the Mexicans have overpopulated the blacks in their own hoods, in their own communities. So you ain't got a hood no more. It's a barrio.
I'm speaking off of full experience. I'm not speaking off of what I think the culture is, what I heard like milk. I'm speaking off of full experience. Like my stepdad Dice, right? His brother is
anybody from LA. Like, listen, man, you got all these LA podcasters and they don't talk about it, bro. They get on here and they do these hood vlogs, talk about Compton, South Central. Man, Compton is Mexico now, man. The east side of South Central is Mexico, man. You got a bunch of gangbangers hanging out doing hood vlogs, but what they're not telling you is their hood is now Mexico. They became the minority in their community. They're not going to say that in these hood vlogs because they're still trying to promote gang culture. Because they know the viewers don't know any better. But when you're from Los Angeles, Southern California, you know that most of these black communities have became Mexico. Compton, South Central, Watts.
his baby Sharnball from Full Trade Gangsta, his real name Terry. He's like my uncle. What's up, Terry? He came to my mama. My mama moved to Rosemead for a little bit and she had to go. She moved to Rosemead. Terry came over there to see my mother and his brother walk back to the bus stop to leave. A car full of Hispanics pulled up on him and was like, hey, you in the wrong neighborhood, fool. He said, man, I'm just getting on the bus. I'm just trying to go. They wasn't trying to hear that. They jumped out, packed them out, and stabbed them and told them don't come around here no more. That's how they get down when the city is predominantly them and the neighborhood is predominantly them. Let me see a black family or a black hood go.
Blacks can't start no gangs in East LA. Them essays ain't going for it. Blacks can't start no black gang in El Monte, La Puente. Them Mexicans ain't going for it. So black people, you got to share your hoods with Mexicans, but Mexicans ain't got to share their hoods with you. Now, that's something that 95% of these LA podcasters won't tell you. Go to any one of your gangbang podcasts, your Los Angeles podcasters who claim to be gangbangers, who claim to be Crips and Bloods. They're not going to tell you that. None of them will tell you that. They'll talk about gang culture, who got beef with who, what the YNs are doing. They'll talk about all that. But this is what I'm going to tell you, one thing they'll never talk about. They'll never talk about the fact that Mexicans don't share their hoods with blacks, but blacks share their hoods with Mexicans. None of those dudes will ever tell you that. 95% of them won't tell you that. They talk about LA like it's still the 80s and the early 90s. But they won't tell you how South Central and Compton is now Mexico. They won't say nothing about that. They ignore those facts. In other words, they are misleading the people with false information. You are promoting gangbanging, but your community is now Mexico. But you want to promote Crip and Blood gangbanging. Man, your hood is Mexico now, bruh. But you still want to promote gangbanging. Black on black, Crip on blood. Blacks ain't even got their own communities no more in Los Angeles. You got to share with the Mexicans.
Any one of these Hispanic cities or neighborhoods and do what they do in South Central LA. They got their own cities, Torrance, Southgate, all is predominantly them. Let me see a black family or a black hood go to any one of these Hispanic cities or neighborhoods and do what they do in South Central LA. They got their own cities, Torrance, Southgate, all them cities that I named, El Monte, Rosemead, they got all them cities, and they got a piece of our cities. Ain't got
Yeah, we need to do better with those likes, bro. We got all these people watching, but for some reason, we don't have enough likes. It's like somebody's paying you people to not bless the like button. This is some of the realest content you gonna get. Fig, and I ain't got nothing against Fig Community, but Fig Community ain't gonna tell you this. Compton Rick Rock ain't gonna tell you this. And I ain't got nothing against Compton Rick Rock and Fig Community. AD ain't gonna tell you this. The Cub Community ain't gonna tell you this. They talk about gangbanging like it's still the 80s, like these communities are still predominantly black when they are not. The majority of these hoods are now Mexico, Tijuana. I bet you wanna, and Tijuana. What do I look like talking about gangbanging, black on black crime every day, and my hood is now Mexico? Blacks have become the minority in their own communities. You can't call it a hood no more. It is now a barrio.
But let the shoe be on the other foot. They not gonna let us set up shop nowhere, bro. But things like that, Milk 74 don't know, because he not really from the culture. He don't understand it. Oh man, they cool because we right here with them. Shut up. Shut up.
Now, there was a very, very famous case that's been talked about recently, even on the political side of things, where there was a black family that was their house was firebombed by some Hispanic gang members.
Now, there was a firebombing back in 2014 where the Mexicans in East LA firebombed the apartments of the handful of blacks that lived in their projects. They didn't want blacks living in their communities. Have you guys ever seen any of these LA podcasters talk about those fire bombings? I mean, Bobby Yeye talked about it. King Supreme talked about it. But I haven't seen all these so-called hard-ass gangbangers that's been to prison, that's Crips and Bloods, or wherever they from. You never hear them talk about the fire bombings that happen to black families and predominant Mexican communities. All these so-called tough-ass LA gangbangers, Crips and Bloods, ain't said a word about that. They do these podcasts and these shows and they pretend like these issues with Mexicans don't exist. And they won't tell you that their hood looks like Mexico now. They won't tell you that. They won't tell you that Compton is Mexico now. They won't tell you that the east side of South Central is Mexico. But they get up here every day and talk about gangbanging and hood politics and who caught a fade in the county jail, who can't come back to the hood, who snitched. They'll talk about all of that, but they forget to tell you that their hood is now Mexico. They became the minority in their own communities. They never talk about that. But they want to sell you this gangbang image, but they won't talk about what's really going on in a MF and hood. The Mexicans own the majority of the businesses in your communities. The Mexicans occupy most of the homes in your community. The Mexicans occupy most of the apartments in your community. If you drive past if you drive and if you go to these hoods in LA and Compton and you pass by one of these middle schools or high schools, you're like, damn, where the black people at? Drive past Manual Arts. Go to Manual Arts on Vermont over there. Drive past Manual Arts and you're going to say, damn, man, where are all the black people? Go to Lock High on the east side. Say, damn, man, where are all the black people? Go to any one of these middle schools or high schools and ride by when school get out. You're going to be like, damn, where the black people go? I thought this was South Central. I thought this was Compton. It is now Mexico. I am telling you the truth.
You know, very famous case.
Are you talking about the one, was it Aliso Village, like East LA?
Something that.
Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah, and it was just a regular family. So
That's East LA.
So
now
what
let
you're
a black
saying,
gang go to East LA. See, that's how you know Milk don't know what he talking about, bro. See, I understand the mind of these racist scenarios, bro. Of course they're gonna.
We're gonna switch to another clip in a second.
Act like they like us, or to get in the rap game, or to get in and to be in our neighborhood.
No, talking about sounds like wine and no, it sounds like I'm telling the damn truth, you dummy. Now, you can do all that typing in the comment section. I bet you won't hit that link and prove me wrong about anything I said. You can't prove that I'm wrong about anything I'm said. You can't prove me wrong about anything. Hit the link and let's have a conversation. And you have an opportunity to prove me wrong about anything. You won't do it because you know I'm telling the truth.
Outnumbered, of course, but let them outnumber us. Let them control the rap game. They ain't gonna give a shit. Everybody.
All right, let's go. I just wanted to play that little part right there. Yeah, man. You might not like what I'm saying, but you can't prove I'm lying about it.
Esther Snoop Dogg reps Long Beach like it's sacred ground. In Mac, picture this. It's the early 1990s.
Shout out to Scope News, man. Scope News, shout out to you, bro.
Lowriders are cruising down Crenshaw. DJ Quick is on the radio. Snoop Dogg reps Long Beach like it's sacred ground. In Mac 10, everyone knew Inglewood was his. This wasn't just rap culture. It was a mirror of real life. Compton, Inglewood, Watts, South Central, they weren't just zip codes. They were black hubs of culture, power, and survival. These cities were shaped by the children and grandchildren of the Great Migration, families that had escaped the terror of the Jim Crow South from places like Louisiana and Texas, relocated west in search of something better. They came to Oakland, Los Angeles, Richmond, Long Beach, and they built. Today, Scope News presents the story California doesn't want to tell, the quiet erasure of its black legacy. This isn't about nostalgia. This is
Shout out to Scope News, man.
About what happens when a people are used to build cities, shape culture, and then get pushed out in silence. In LA, black people found work in shipyards, airplane plants, and the railroads. In Oakland, they helped run the ports, fix the engines, and raise the city's cultural pulse. West Oakland had Southern Baptist churches that echoed with Texas choirs. East Oakland smelled like gumbo and smoked ribs. People brought their traditions with them, and Black California began to rise. Like Lady Esther's Soul Food Restaurant that used to be located on East 14th Street and 53rd Avenue that opened in 1968. A native of Louisiana, Esther Clay founded this restaurant which served East Oakland for decades. Locals said that the food was some of the best soul food that they had ever had. Inglewood, Crenshaw, and Compton were extensions of the South, but with palm trees and promise. But now, walk into those same neighborhoods and something feels off. Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, once a place built for and by black folks, is now run by a Mexican woman who is also the COO. Most of the staff cooking the food aren't black.
See, there you go. Most of the staff, they're telling you how Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Pico is now ran by a Mexican. They got Mexican cooks. The food don't taste the same. It don't have that same flavor.
But now, walk into those same neighborhoods and something feels off. Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, once a place built for and by black folks, is now run by a Mexican woman who is also the COO. Most of the staff cooking the food aren't black. That's not just a staffing change, it's a symbol. Because when the ownership, the narrative, and the profit leaves the hands of the people who created it, that's not cultural growth. That's cultural displacement. Compton is now nearly 70% Latino. Inglewood is majority Latino too.
Compton is 70% Latino. Keep in mind what he said. Compton is now 70% Latino. Compton is a barrio. It's not a hood no more. Wake up, people. Stop listening to these gangbangers talk about stupid stuff while they listen. These gang members talk about ignorance and stupidity. Meanwhile, their hoods have became Mexico. Bet money they won't talk about how their hood became Mexico. They don't want you to know that, but in reality, that's what's going on. Compton is now Mexico. Compton is now 75% Latino. Now, when you think about these rap videos and you hear about Compton, black people put Compton on the map. Who put Compton on the map? Black folks, Eazy-E, NWA. That's who put Compton on the map. Nobody would have gave a damn about Compton if it wasn't for black folks. But guess what? Compton is now a barrio. It's not a hood no more. Compton is now 75% Latino. They didn't move your black ass to Palmdale. They didn't move your black ass to Moreno Valley, San Bernardino County, the Inland Empire.
Compton is now nearly 70% Latino. Inglewood is majority Latino too. Long Beach has seen it. The narrative and the profit leaves the hands of the people who created it. That's not cultural growth. That's cultural displacement. Compton is now.
I got it, Cat 6. I'm gonna do some content on that today.
That's not cultural growth. That's cultural displacement. Compton is now nearly 70% Latino. Inglewood is majority Latino too. Long Beach has seen its black population steadily fall. And the cultural anchors, the barbershops, churches, food spots, bookstores, have been replaced, relocated, or erased. It's not just Latino growth. Asians now make up a massive and growing demographic in Southern California. Places like Monterey Park, Cerritos, Diamond Bar, and entire areas of the San Gabriel Valley have become cultural powerhouses, complete with political influence, real estate ownership, and elite education systems. And still, no one asks, how did these newer communities get the support to thrive, while foundational black communities were left to rot? We can't ignore immigration either. Since the 1980s, California has received a constant wave of both legal and undocumented immigrants from Mexico and Central America. Many ended up in black neighborhoods, not by accident, but because those were the communities starved of investment and ripe for resettlement. Landlords saw new tenants, politicians saw new voters, developers saw profit, and black families, especially those who owned homes and businesses, found themselves boxed in, priced out, or pushed out. Jobs were disappearing, schools were failing, and rent? It was climbing faster than wages. Real estate developers swept through with buyout offers. Then came the gentrification, trendy cafes, construction zones, shiny new stadiums, and rental prices that left no room for the original community. SoFi Stadium in Inglewood is a perfect example, a billion-dollar attraction built on the bones of a black neighborhood. Now let's talk about who's leading the city, and whether they're truly representing the people who built it. Karen Bass made headlines as the first African-American woman to lead a state legislative body in the U.S., and is now the mayor of Los Angeles. But in 2018, she posted a picture of her grandfather, Salvador, describing him as a dreamer before the term existed. He came from Mexico, fought in World War II, received full GI Bill benefits, and built a business. It's a proud story, but you rarely see it in her campaign speeches or public branding. Bass doesn't often highlight her Latino roots in political forums. Instead, She centers herself squarely in the Black community, presenting as a foundational Black leader from South LA. And that raises hard questions. If her Mexican heritage is real and personal, why isn't it more present when she campaigns? And if she owes her political rise to Black communities, Black churches, Black voters, Black movements, why do her policies so often prioritize other groups? Like her recent plan to offer prepaid debit cards to undocumented immigrants. All while Black homelessness in LA is at crisis levels. Who exactly is being served here? It's the same pattern we saw with Vice President.
Do Black people, I want to ask you guys something. Do Black people have the luxury to talk about gangbanging when Compton is now Mexico? Most of South Central is now majority Latino. Do we have the luxury to promote gangbanging when Blacks are being gentrified out of the city? But you want to talk about gangbanging. I said this yesterday. These gangbangers who take all this pride in Compton and South Central, they don't own no homes in South Central. A lot of these gangbangers don't even have apartments in their names. They're living off of women. But they come to social media and talk about gangbanging. But they live with a woman that threatens to put their Black ass out every time he gets saucy with her. Every time there's an argument, she tells you this is her house and you can get the hell out. So you living off some woman, the apartment ain't in your name, everything is in a woman's name. Your hood is now Mexico, but you come to the internet to promote gangbanging as a Black man. You look stupid.
Kamala Harris. Born to a Jamaican father and an Indian mother, Harris is not descended from U.S. chattel slavery. But during her presidential run, she embraced Black American culture, dancing with HBCU bands, quoting civil rights leaders, and calling herself part of the African American struggle. And yet, once elected, she focused on immigration, Asian hate crime legislation, and international relations. While foundational Black communities continued to wait for even basic acknowledgement, let alone reparations or reinvestment. This is what many now call identity extraction, the political borrowing of Black identity, struggle, and symbolism to win votes and build brand recognition. Newer terms that may fit are ones like grifter or tether. But once power is secured, the loyalty of the Black voter is left unrewarded. The policy promises.
Shout out to Scope News, man. Scope News did a good job at breaking a lot of this stuff down that I've been talking about. Shout out to Scope News. Subscribe to that brother's channel.
Go silent, and the focus shifts to everyone but the people who made the victory possible. Meanwhile, Black California is disappearing.
Shout out to Ryder Prophet for the 10 on the Cash App. Shout out to Ryder Prophet. Shout out to Gold Professor for the 7 on the Cash App. Shout out to my girl Tiffany for the 20.
South Central has been renamed. South LA schools are now majority Spanish speaking. The culture, loyalty of the.
See, he's getting ready to tell you how South LA is majority Latino and most people speak Spanish. I told you, it ain't a hood no more. It is a barrio. And you got Black people in LA that's dumb enough to still promote gangbanging, knowing damn well your hood is Mexico now. But you want to promote gangbanging and what Black folks should do to one another, how Black folks are gangbanging and terrorizing one another, but your community is now Mexico. Make it make sense. Blacks in LA ain't got the luxury to promote gangbanging. You're living in Mexico.
The Black voter is left unrewarded. The policy promises go silent, and the focus shifts to everyone but the people who made the victory possible. Meanwhile, Black California is disappearing. South Central has been renamed. South LA schools are now majority Spanish speaking. The culture, gentrified. The history, ignored. The elders, displaced.
If Scope News is really in the comments, he's welcome to hit the link. Scope News, I don't know if you're there. I don't know if people are trolling, but if you are there, you are welcome to hit the link. Gang banging, promoting Black on Black violence when your hood is now Mexico. You look dumb.
Crenshaw is full of construction signs. West Oakland looks like a tech campus. And the kids of the Great Migration, the sons and daughters of Louisiana and Texas, are gone.
Send me the video, Chris.
Even rollers display.
Send me that video about the dude talking about MLK because of what happened to Cesar Chavez. Send me the video and I'll drop something on that today.
Crenshaw is full of construction signs. West Oakland looks like a tech campus. And the kids of the Great Migration, the sons and daughters of Louisiana and Texas, are gone. Even Roscoe's, once the meeting place for legends, feels different now. It's still serving chicken and waffles, but the soul behind it, the people, the music, the stories, is fading fast. Remember Boys and the Hood? John Singleton made that film to capture the reality of South LA. It was raw, it was painful, it was real. That world is almost gone now. You can walk those same streets today and not recognize a single building. And Mac 10, even he would probably struggle to find his old neighborhood. From 2000 to 2020, over 100,000 Black residents left Los Angeles County. Some went to the Inland Empire. Some left the state. Others just disappeared into poverty, displacement, or silence. This isn't migration, it's removal. Quiet, unspoken, strategic removal. The question isn't just where did they go? The real question is who will be next? Scope News tells the truth. And here are the facts. U.S. Census Bureau data confirms the sharp decline in Black residents across Los Angeles, Compton, Inglewood, Long strategic removal. The question isn't just where did they go? The real question is who will be.
You talk about black on black violence and gangbanging, it's stupidity. You're being gentrified out of your own communities, but you promote this nonsense all over the internet. Black people in LA have lost their communities. They share their communities. Whatever community Black folks have left in Los Angeles, they're sharing it with Mexicans. Those are the facts.
Or silence. This isn't migration, it's removal. Quiet, unspoken, strategic removal. The question isn't just where did they go? The real question is who will be next? Scope News tells the truth. And here are the facts. U.S. Census Bureau data confirms the sharp decline in Black residents across Los Angeles, Compton, Inglewood, Long Beach, Oakland, and San Francisco. The Urban Displacement Project, Pew Research Center, and UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs have extensively documented demographic shifts, immigration patterns, and the effects of housing policies on Black Californians. Karen Bass's Facebook post about her Mexican grandfather is public record. The GI Bill disparity for Black WE2's veterans is backed by the Department of Veterans Affairs and major civil rights history texts. Reporting on Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles confirms management changes and demographic shifts. Kamala Harris's heritage and policy focus are supported by public campaign footage and federal legislation tracking. Historic migration patterns from Texas and Louisiana to California are preserved in the Schomburg Center, the California African American Museum, and multiple UC archives. Special thanks to the Watts Labor Community Action Committee, the East Bay Black Cultural Archives, and oral histories recorded through StoryCorps and CAM. Legal disclaimer. This Scope News report is intended solely for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes. It is based on verified public records, historical research, and journalistic analysis protected under fair use. Viewer discretion is advised, as topics may include sensitive content related to race, displacement, and political accountability. This report is not intended to incite harm or discrimination toward any individual or group. Scope News aims to reflect history accurately and responsibly, while acknowledging the limitations of public data, archival access, and evolving interpretations. All names, dates, policies, and examples are true to the best of our editorial ability at the time of publication.
So yeah, man, you've seen it for yourself. Now let's move on over here real quick. I got some more stuff that I want to share with y'all. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to react to, but I'm gonna do it. Listen, man, I'm just telling you guys about what it is and what it ain't.
You couldn't go anywhere without hearing Drop It Like It's Hot on the radio by Snoop Dogg. Meanwhile, a black father pulls his car in the parking lot of a warehouse in the Inland Empire before the sun rises. Steel toe boots, lunch pail. He passed the background check. He passed the drug test. He's qualified. In fact, overqualified. In the back of his mind is the fact that rent keeps going up and he's got kids to feed. What he was not aware of is that actually getting the job was just the beginning. Behind the diverse branding and progressive politics of California is a different story, a story that doesn't get into tourism campaigns or politician speeches. In 2024, black unemployment in Los Angeles County was approximately 9.9%. Asians were about 3.4%. Latinos, approximately 5.5%. The gap is not small. It has been there for a long time. California at one point had a strong black middle class, mainly through aerospace, manufacturing, and public sector jobs. Union jobs, stable wages, and pensions. Those industries allowed families from Compton, Inglewood, Oakland, Richmond, and South Los Angeles to have decent lives. Afterwards, those industries deteriorated, factories moved. Defense contracts changed, public hiring was more limited. What came after the referral-based service economy was limited. And you could not forget that referrals remained within ethnic networks. Some of these cases were well documented. The EEOC sued two Latinos.
The reason why, man, Latinos gatekeep their communities, they gatekeep jobs and keep blacks out of it. But you got Latinos crying about not being welcome in hip hop. Well, when Latinos dominated industry, they're not going to let a lot of blacks in that industry when they dominate it. And if you're from Los Angeles, you know what I'm talking about. If Latinos are the majority at a construction site, they're going to gatekeep it. They're going to have that job. Most of those jobs will go to Latinos. Same thing in their communities. They're going to rent to Latinos. They're going to give jobs to Latinos. So why should we be so welcoming to something that we dominate, which is hip hop? It makes no sense. Why would we allow all these Mexicans in hip hop? For what? Mexicans gatekeep their communities. They gatekeep these jobs. The Mexicans run with Aryan brotherhoods and white supremacists in prison. Mexicans in East LA firebomb black people just for living there. That is Ku Klux Klan behavior, the same thing that black folks dealt with in Alabama, the same thing that black folks dealt with in Mississippi, Tennessee, the Deep South. So you dealt with Jim Crow, Ku Klux Klan members firebombing black people's houses in the South just to deal with the same behavior from Mexicans in California. Don't believe me? Look at the 2014 bombing in East LA when the Mexicans firebombed the houses or the apartments of the handful of blacks that lived in their community.
Owned food manufacturers, Helados La Tapatia and Marquez Brothers International, for allegedly refusing to hire non-Hispanic applicants. Marquez Brothers paid $2 million to settle the allegations that black, white, and Asian applicants were discouraged from applying.
Mexicans gatekeep East LA. That's why they firebombed the apartments of a handful of blacks that lived there. They did the same thing in El Monte. They did the same thing in the Hawaiian Gardens. When Mexicans are the majority in the community, they don't want blacks living there. They gatekeep those communities. The only time they'll embrace a black person is if that black person want to join their gang. But if black people move in and want to do their own thing, the Mexicans ain't going for it. They don't want blacks. They don't want blacks. They don't want blacks living in their communities, homie. You know, this is a known fact, and you can look this up. You can look this up yourself. You ain't got to take my word for it. Matter of fact, I'll show the videos.
For factory jobs. Helados La Tapatia paid a settlement after the non-Hispanic driver and only driver was fired allegedly within a week. Then there was Barron HR, a staffing agency in Los Angeles, which was accused of discriminating with the systematic failure to refer black, white, and Asian workers for job placements while Latino applicants were favored. The settlement amounted to $2.2 million and required reforms. These were federal cases, not social media claims, not rumors. All facts. And the pattern is old and tired. Korean stores in South Central Los Angeles in the 1980s and 1990s were in most cases staffed almost exclusively by Korean employees, while the customers were mainly black. That hiring pattern was one of the several grievances of the economy that were raised during the 1992 unrest. Economic exclusion does not go out of memory. Now let's fast forward to the Inland Empire. Cardinal Health, Ryder Logistics. The EEOC brought one of the largest racial harassment cases against a company in California history after hundreds of black warehouse workers explained how the systemic abuse was directed at them. The workers had reported being insulted in both Spanish and English every day. Mayate was one of the terms used. The N word.
Mayate. That's a common word for Mexicans. Mayate. That's what they use. That's what they say when they talking greasy about blacks. Mayate. Hey. You know?
References to monkeys in both Spanish and English every day. Mayate was one of the terms used. The N word. References to monkeys. Taunts with bananas. Bathroom graffiti saying black people stink, and other threats were exemplified by lynching. Management was accused of deliberately giving the toughest task, denying them the training they requested, and punishing them for their complaints. Workers' settlements, including roughly 300 black people, amounted to millions of dollars. One of the workers, Barry Bryant, shared that he was told that he would never get a promotion. When he was terminated and replaced after reporting racial abuses and noose drawings, he was replaced. Anna Park, EEOC regional attorney in Los Angeles, remarked that recent anti-black workplace rulings involved offenders from different racial ethnicities, Latino, white, and the like. Diversity does not necessarily mean that anti-black prejudice will be totally eliminated. The 2022 Tesla's Fremont factory state lawsuit alleged that black employees were forced into the most physically demanding roles, and racial slurs were hurled at them. In another instance, a black elevator operator won $15 million after he had been racially harassed repeatedly. In 2024, the jury ruled that Cognizant had around 80% South Asian employees, and that non-Indian workers were fired at a rate that was more than 8 times the normal rate. Now enter the banking industry. Wells Fargo paid well over $35 million to cover the claims made by black financial advisors who argued that they were given less profitable territories to work in, while the white ones handled the accounts of the...
Man, you see this? I'm telling you, man, we're talking about economics. We're talking about violence. We're talking about politics. All in one live stream because it all goes together. Bless the like button. I don't know why y'all acting like somebody... Did somebody pay you guys to not hit the like button? Did somebody tell you, man, don't hit the like button on King Supreme's content? Somebody got to be paying y'all to not hit that like button. Y'all acting real weird. Y'all listen to these channels that talk about gang violence and stupid stuff while blacks are being gentrified out of their own communities all over California. But you want to listen to black people talk about you want black people to talk about stupidity and gang violence all day while ignoring the fact that they're being pushed out of these communities. But you want to hear black people talk stupid all day. When somebody talk like they got some damn sense, when somebody's trying to educate y'all, I got to tell you fools to hit the like button. If somebody was talking about gang bang nonsense and ignorance, well, I guess that's what y'all want to hear. Black folks in LA ain't going to be satisfied until they're 3% of the population. You're 8% of the population. You're not going to be satisfied. You're not going to be satisfied until you become 3% of LA's population. Keep playing these games. Keep promoting gang banging. You're going to see what's going to happen. Watch and see what's going to happen. 8% of the city's population, and you still want to promote gang banging, and your hood look like Mexico. Y'all want to listen to that stupid stuff, not me.
Wealthy. The U.S. Department of found out that the company had denied work to over 30,000 black applicants, resulting in an $8 million settlement. A whistleblower said that Wells Fargo was staging fake interviews with minority candidates for jobs that had already been filled. Investigations by a federal agency are underway. Marilyn Booker, former Morgan Stanley Global Diversity Officer, sued the company after she alleged that she was fired for leading the reforms that were necessary for black advisors. A few years back, 7 black brokers brought up the concerns of them being neglected in favor of the more lucrative accounts. One white employee was reported to have said to a black advisor that most wealthy clients are comfortable with people who look like them. Various regional banks have also encountered scrutiny due to their racial practices. Natrese Spicer filed a racial discrimination and retaliation suit against Heritage Bank of Commerce after raising several complaints. A former J.P. Morgan employee subsequently accused the bank of systemic race discrimination and of performative diversity hiring, which included staged interviews. Across warehousing, food production, consulting, tech, and finance, the documented cases illustrate a recurring theme. Closed networks lead to closed doors. Culturally familiar faces get promoted. Disgruntled voices get silenced, and complaining equals retaliation. Now the policymaking layer. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass took office in 2022. From 2019, Governor Gavin Newsom has been at the helm. Mayor Bass has initiated instructive directives to protect immigrant communities against federal immigration enforcement and pushed for the formal recognition of Los Angeles as a sanctuary city. Executive Directive 17 increased
Listen, man, California should be the blueprint. California is the blueprint for what's going on all across America. You go to North Carolina, you got a bunch of illegals trying to overpopulate in North Carolina. They're doing the same thing in Georgia. This is not just a California issue. Now, the bigger issue is California, but the thing is, this thing is spreading all across the country. It ain't limited to California no more. It ain't isolated to California. That's what I meant to say. Y'all better wake up and smell what's going on before it's too late. You've seen what happened in California. You don't want that to happen to Georgia. You don't want that to happen to North Carolina. So it is time to take action. Learn from the mistakes of California. Wake up and smell what's going on. Stop voting for Democratic policies. It's going to hurt your community. You better wake up and quit being foolish before it's too late. How do you think Compton became Mexico? How do you think South Central became Mexico? Because of these Democratic policies. Open borders.
Measures to limit cooperation with federal immigration activity on city property. Governor Newsom unveiled a $125 million disaster relief fund for undocumented immigrants during COVID-19, calling it the first state-led effort of its kind. His team pushed for the inclusion of undocumented workers who were left out from federal relief. These steps are in the record. They have been announced publicly. They are in fact deliberate. Here's the question of accountability. Immigrant protection policies were publicized and enacted quite fast, while Black unemployment in Los Angeles County is still far above the other ethnic groups. The major anti-Black employment lawsuits had to be filed with the federal EEOC rather than the local law enforcement agencies deploying initiatives that were aimed at Black job displacement. Where is the executive directive that addresses the Black unemployment gap that has been documented? Where is the enforcement task force with a laser focus on the exclusionary hiring networks that have been revealed through the EEOC settlements? Governor Newsom has vetoed some of the proposals that were aimed at expanding unemployment benefits for undocumented workers, thereby demonstrating policy selectivity. That detail counts. But the end result that can be measured is Black unemployment remains at a high level. The Black population share in the bigger California cities has been on the downtrend. The federal lawsuits have been documenting systemic anti-Black harassment and exclusion. Protecting one vulnerable group does not mean ignoring another. It is a matter of proportional accountability. If the authorities can issue executive directives, initiate funding mechanisms, and organize public defense strategies for one constituency, then the public record raises the question as to why no similar equally visible structural initiatives have been deployed to eliminate the Black employment gap. The fact of the matter is lawsuits are present, settlements have been paid out, and the unemployment data is documented. At Scope News, our reports will say what the press releases will never tell. And the court documents reveal that for many Black Californians, the barriers to employment are not casual stories. The proof is in the court cases, the statistics, and yet till this day, they are still going on. So who is in the wrong? And when will it change? Scope News tells the truth. Here are the facts. This report references Los Angeles Times coverage of California racial discrimination cases involving Cardinal Health and Ryder Logistics. Official EEOC press releases regarding Helados La Tapatia, Marquez Brothers International, and Barron HR settlements. Public Policy Institute of California Unemployment Data for Los Angeles County, 2024. California Department of Fair Employment and Housing litigation involving Tesla. Jury findings in the Cognizant employment discrimination case. U.S. Department of Labor findings involving Wells Fargo. Reporting on Wells Fargo hiring investigations. Washington Post coverage of Morgan Stanley litigation. HR Dive reporting on J.P. Morgan discrimination allegations. Heritage Bank of Commerce lawsuit filings. And official public announcements from the Office of...
Shout out to my man Terry for blessing us with a 15 on the Cash App. Shout out to Mogul Mays for blessing us with a 12 on the Cash App. If you a foundational Black American and you ain't hitting the like button, something is wrong with you. If you love real content that's telling you the truth and you ain't blessed that like button, something is wrong with you. You want these gangbangers to tell you lies. If you're listening to gangbang content in 2026, is dumb at this point. These gangbangers have become the minorities in their own communities. So why would I listen to them talk about gangbanging every day when their hood is now Mexico? It doesn't make any sense. And if you're listening to it as a subscriber, then something is wrong with you. Where's your common sense? Where's your antennas? Where's your thinking cap? You really gonna listen to somebody in California talk about gangbanging when their hood is now Mexico? Are you dumb enough to listen to that? These blacks are being gentrified out of their communities, but you want to come to the internet and talk about gangbanging, which contributes to more Black dysfunction, more Black self-destruction. You got to be dumb to listen to that. I'm not going to listen to no gangbanger from Los Angeles, a Crip or Blood talk about gangbanging when this hood looks like Mexico now. I don't want to hear that. The hell I want to hear about Crippin' and Blood in Los Angeles when it's Mexico now.
Governor Gavin Newsom and the Office of Mayor Karen Bass regarding immigration-related executive directives and disaster relief programs. Legal disclaimer. This content is produced for educational, informational, and journalistic commentary purposes. Scope News compiles publicly available court filings, regulatory settlements, government labor data, and official policy statements to analyze employment discrimination patterns and public policy outcomes. Allegations referenced reflect claims made in lawsuits and investigations. Some cases were settled without admission of wrongdoing. This report does not constitute legal advice. Viewer discretion is advised due to references to racial slurs and documented workplace harassment contained in court records. All information reflects publicly.
There was a lawsuit in California about blacks being discriminated on in these jobs by Latinos. So you're dealing with anti-black racism on the street level. You're dealing with anti-black racism when it comes to politics. You're dealing with it from every angle in California. So why would you listen to somebody in Los Angeles talk about gangbanging knowing that black folks are being gentrified out of the communities? Blacks have been discriminated on in these jobs by Latinos in California, Los Angeles. But you still want to listen to these idiots talk about Crips and Bloods all day when their neighborhoods now look like Mexico? Are you dumb enough to listen to these dudes? The Mexicans have took over your community, but you run to the internet to talk about gangbanging, black on black violence? This is stupid. If this ain't stupid, I don't know what is. Dumb. Your community is Mexico and you still want to talk about black on black violence? Promoting it, but you're promoting it, but pretending like you're not promoting it. You're promoting stupidity for money on social media. Your hood looks like Tijuana, homeboy. And you think people don't know what's going on. Maybe these people out of town don't know what's going on, but I am telling you, Compton is Mexico now. The east side is South Central is Mexico. Black people can't even get jobs at a lot of these places because they've been discriminated on by Mexicans and Latinos. They gatekeep these jobs and positions once they get in a position of power. Let me go to my homeboy, Dewan B. Let's go to Dewan B. I don't want to hear what these gangbangers are saying. They're not going to tell you the truth. They full of it.
Has been going under, and not just Compton.
Shout out to Dewan B, man. That's my meaning to reach out to Dewan B, man. But I had to rebuild. I had to build this channel because my last channel got terminated by you already know who. I ain't even got to get into that. But shout out to Dewan B. He's getting ready to tell you how Los Angeles and Compton is now Mexico. Let's go.
Here, as you see on one of the topics trending, is Compton is transition. This has been trending. I'm gonna do a separate topic on this. Is Compton's black population going extinct? Yeah, it's been going extinct all.
He's getting ready to tell you how Compton black population has gone extinct. So if LA black population is going extinct, why do you listen to these idiots that talk about gangbanging and black on black violence when their neighborhoods is Mexico now? Why do you want to listen to that stupid stuff? That's like me having a house. I'm getting ready to lose my house. But I hop on the internet talking about stupid stuff that don't matter. But in the meantime, I'm losing my house. My community is being gentrified and I'm losing my house. And I'm being discriminated on jobs by Latinos, but I bring my stupid ass to the internet to talk about gangbanging and black on black violence while ignoring the fact that my hood is now Mexico. Blacks are the minority in their own communities. Well, once you become the minority in your community, it ain't your hood no more. It's now Mexico.
I'm in LA, and as I was looking at, when I was looking through this earlier, as you see on one of the topics trending, is Compton is transition. This has been trending. I'm gonna do a separate topic on this. Is Compton's black population going extinct? Yeah, it's been going extinct all century. Fool, where y'all been? And I might do another show on that, but actually, let me just break it down right now, real quick. Compton has been going under, and not just Compton, all of South Central LA has been going under soft gentrification since 1990, 89, 90. What happened was in the late 80s, San Bernardino Riverside opened up. They shut the military base down there, and a lot of black people in the late 80s started being able to buy houses out there in Riverside, that's why, like, if you listen to No Vaseline by Cube, he said, yeah, in Compton, but you moved to Riverside. Y'all remember that? What was that, 91? That's when the soft gentrification started. Because you can get a brand new house out there, or you can stay in Compton, stay in South Central, and be dealing with drive-bys every third Thursday. And I remember my parents were going to go. My mom wanted to move to Pomona, and my dad was like, nah, we ain't moving. We right here. We got the airport that's 10 minutes away. We got the beach that's 15 minutes away. Downtown 10 minutes in the other direction. Man, we ain't leave. Man, we ain't going nowhere. But a lot of black people chose to go to Riverside, Pomona, San Bernardino in the 80s. Then when the 90s hit, mid-90s, you start seeing a mass exodus to Palmdale, Lancaster. Let me show you. You started seeing a mass exodus to Palmdale, Lancaster. You see Compton right here? They started coming out this way first, West Covina. That's why, what's his name? Sugar Freeze in Pomona, way over here. Then they started coming way out here to Colton, Fontana. And then when the 90s came, they started going up here to Palmdale. Here we go. Palmdale, Lancaster. This happened in the 90s. And then in the late 90s is when they opened up Victorville on the way to Vegas. So black folks started moving to all these outer skirt desert cities because the hood was very dangerous. And at the time, it only took an hour to get back to LA when you had to go to work, because the traffic wasn't that bad. And then what happened was in the 2000s, Section 8, about 2001, 2002, they stopped handing out Section 8 vouchers in South Central LA and Compton for black people. Now, if you were Mexican, if you were another race, you can get Section 8 vouchers wherever in South Central. But from around 03 to 2012, they weren't giving out Section 8 vouchers for this area. I know because I worked in mental health. I worked for the Department of Mental Health, and every time we had a client that lived in the jungles, that lived over here near Magic Johnson Park or wherever, when they wanted to move, their vouchers was giving them houses way out here in Palmdale. So the city of LA helped. The city of LA knew it wanted to push black people out. allegedly. So also this area out here, Palmdale, Lancaster, basically got South Central LA got relocated out there through Section 8. And that's why people like Paul George lived out there. Kawhi Leonard lived over here in San Bernardino. They would have both been living in Compton, Inglewood, if it weren't for all this going on. So that's what was going on in the 90s, in the 2000s. Section 8 pushed a lot of black people over the mountain, okay? The hardcore gentrification of Compton and South Central started happening after 2014. When the housing, actually another thing that happened. In California, Bear Stearns, Countrywide Mortgage, there was a collusion between loan officers out here, and they were targeting black neighborhoods only with these mortgages that were tripling and quadrupling the interest rate after 2 years. They were directly targeting black people. I know because I owned a house during that time and I got a settlement from it. That's the one good thing Kamala Harris did, was give the largest settlement in California history, because banks were targeting black people with these loans that was getting us taken out of our houses, okay? And then another thing that got in the way, and this plays in the part of ICE, in California, Department of Mental Health jobs started paying more if you spoke Spanish. So multiply that, I mean state and county jobs. First of all, if they hired a black person, they stopped hiring black people. And the way they stopped hiring black people was bilingual preferred. Bilingual preferred basically meant get your black ass out of here, even if you can speak Spanish. Because I know a lot of niggas that can speak Spanish that still didn't get the job. Bilingual.
He's right about that. Just because you speak Spanish don't mean you're going to get the job. They still want their people. So a lot of black people feel like, well, if I'm bilingual, why do I need to learn Spanish in an English-speaking country? That doesn't make sense. But black people who did speak Spanish still didn't get the jobs. Why? Because Mexicans gatekeep jobs. Mexicans gatekeep communities. See, Mexicans want to gentrify hip hop. They done already gentrified Compton and South Central. Now they want to gentrify hip hop. Oh, Mexicans and Latinos should be accepted in hip hop. You're dumb if you allow these essays in hip hop, knowing damn well they gatekeep their positions whenever they have power.
Kicked a lot of black people out of the job market, construction sites.
Let me tell you something, black people. If you let these Mexicans gentrify hip hop, you're dumb. They done already took over Compton and South Central and many areas that was once predominantly black. Now you want them to gentrify hip hop? Oh, it's not enough Mexicans and Latinos and rap. Create your own damn music. The hell, you're trying to make money off of our culture. Go do your own thing. When Mexicans have power, they don't open the door for black folks. They don't. Wake up and smell what's going on, people, before it's too damn late.
Because banks were targeting black people with these loans that was getting us taken out of our houses, okay? And then another thing that got in the way, and this plays in the part of ICE, in California, Department of Mental Health jobs started paying more if you spoke Spanish. So multiply that, I mean state and county jobs. First of all, if they hired a black person, they stopped hiring black people. And the way they stopped hiring black people was bilingual preferred. Bilingual preferred basically meant get your black ass out of here, even if you can speak Spanish. Because I know a lot of niggas that can speak Spanish that still didn't get the job. So bilingual preferred kicked a lot of black people out of the job market. Construction sites went from black in the 80s to black and brown in the 90s to all brown in the 2000s. Department of Motor Vehicle jobs, county jobs, clerk jobs, courthouse jobs, city jobs. All the jobs you niggas that live in the South and the East Coast only see black people in, we got wiped out within about 15 years. From 95 to 2010, all that shit changed. So the black people who remained in Compton, South Central LA, couldn't get a job to keep them in Compton and South Central because the Mexicans didn't hire black people. And that's a warning to the rest of y'all around the country. We all said, we need to.
That is a warning to the rest of y'all across the country. Wake up and smell what's going on. Quit being foolish. Quit being foolish.
2010, all that shit changed. So the black people who remained in Compton, South Central LA, couldn't get a job to keep them in Compton and South Central because the Mexicans didn't hire black people. And that's a warning to the rest of y'all around the country. We all said, we need to step up and defend ICE. Okay, watch them ice your ass out. Because here in California, you don't need to be a citizen to work for the Los Angeles Police Department. You don't need to be a citizen to work for the county now. In the state, y'all know that? They will hire an illegal alien for a state job before they hire your black ass with a degree. And to take it even further, the police department. Y'all want to know what's going on? Because they be like, oh, Latinos run the streets. You know why that's halfway true? It was because the Latinos are the majority of the police department. So they now have a privilege that the white supremacists had. They not only can have their street gangs, they have official law enforcement backing them. This is a fact. Gangs within the sheriff department, within the LAPD, these are facts. White supremacist organizations within law enforcement, these are facts. And common day-to-day black Americans, we ain't tripping on Mexicans walking down up and down the street. But we do got to deal with Mexican LAPD officers who got the power of the white man's law behind them. And these are all the factors that are going into being a citizen of LA. Here's this book, right? There's a study that was done. This is the executive summary there was a study that was done on the examination of the Black American experience in Los Angeles. And it talks about all this stuff in this. And there's a 400-page, they did a full study on this, and it's a 400-page document that what I'll do is I'll leave, if y'all hear this, the hate crime report. Let me show y'all something real quick. Let me show you something. And then we'll get into the next topic. Let me show y'all something. This here is a report. This is a 200-page report on hate crimes in Los Angeles. Well, this is the other one. No, there's another one. No, this is a 40-page one. The 200-page one I got somewhere else. But look at this. There's also a 200-page report. Where is it? Okay, this is one of the reports. This is the 40-page report. I also got a 400-page report.
Shout out to Dewan B. Dewan B is breaking a lot of this stuff down for you guys, man. I'm telling you. Like, if you listen to LA podcasters talk about gang banging and cripping and blooding, while blacks are only 8% of Los Angeles, the overall population, we're only 8%. Latinos are like 70% of Compton, 75% of Compton now. So if Latinos are 75% of Compton, what do blacks look like gang banging and unaliving one another when Compton is now Mexico? I don't listen to these LA podcasters that talk about gang banging. I'm not listening to that stupid stuff. It's dumb at this point. You the minority in your community. Well, it ain't your community. Once you become the minority, it ain't your community no more. It ain't a hood. It's a barrio. So why would I listen to some black man promote Crip and blood nonsense when his community is now Mexico? It doesn't make sense. You got to be dumb to sit up there and listen to that. You're the minority in your own community, but you still promote gangbanging, black on black violence. You look dumb.
That goes even report. This is a 200-page report on hate crimes in Los Angeles. Well, this is the other one. No, there's another one. No, this is a 40-page one. The 200-page one I got somewhere else. But look at this. There's also a 200-page report. Where is it? Okay, this is one of the reports. This is the 40-page report. I also got a 400-page report that goes even further in this. Talking about hate crimes, anti-Black American hate crimes. Black people are 49% of racial hate crime victims in Los Angeles. Anti-Latino, 19%. Asians increased by 31%. They had a total of 80 victims. Black people had 320 anti-Black crime. The highest number ever recorded in 2023. But who do we call? We call a white and Latino police department, an Asian police department. That's what we got to call to help us out with this. So here in LA, we behind enemy lines on a way the rest of you niggas around the country don't understand. Because it ain't just white and black anymore. We were told, my generation was told black and brown, but the brown is the highest people perpetuating these crimes. And they're back by law.
Let me tell you something. California was only Mexico for 27 years. California was only Mexico for 27 years. They had a short run and they did nothing with California when they owned it. California received its development when the United States of America took over. California was a piece of crap when Mexico owned it, and Mexico only had it for 27 years. Please understand that. So when they tell you, oh, this used to be, it was only Mexico for 27 years. Prior to that, the indigenous, well, the Spanish owned it. Prior to the Spanish owning it, the indigenous owned it. And there's many different, there's a lot of indigenous tribes in America, and a lot of them look different. They didn't all look the same. Contrary to popular belief, when it comes to the natives, they look different. They didn't all look the same. You had melanated natives, you had red natives, you had, just like when you go to Africa today, not everybody in Africa don't look the same. You got lighter skinned Africans, you got medium complected Africans, you got darker complected Africans. Why? Because there's different tribes and different ethnicities in Africa. It was the same thing in America. But they want to paint the picture like all these natives were pale-skinned red people. That is a bold-faced lie. California was Mexico for it was Mexico for 27 years. That's not a long time. A lot of you guys in the comment section got kids that's older than 27.
White and Latino police department and Asian police department. That's what we got to call to help us out with this. So here in LA, we behind enemy lines on a way the rest of you niggas around the country don't understand. Because it ain't just white and black anymore. We were told, my generation was told black and brown, but the brown is the highest people perpetuating these crimes. And they're backed by law enforcement. And that's the part that...
When you look at these hate crimes in California, Mexicans and Latinos commit more hate crimes against black folks than white people do. Duane B just broke that down, but I've been talking about this for years, as well as Duane B. Mexicans in California commit more hate crimes against black people than white folks. If you don't believe me, look at the stats. I have the stats to prove it. Duane B just broke down the stats. The majority of hate crimes in California are committed by Mexicans, not white people. That's something for y'all to think about. You got these dumbass Negroes talking about gangbanging and cripping and blood, and they hood looks like Mexico, and Mexicans are committing the majority of hate crimes against black folks, not white people. Let that marinate on your mind 50 times. Maybe you'll wake up and learn something.
White and Latino police department and Asian police department. That's what we got to call to help us out with this. So here in LA, we behind enemy lines on a way the rest of you niggas around the country don't understand. Because it ain't just white and black anymore. We were told, my generation was told black and brown, but the brown is the highest people perpetuating these crimes. And they're backed by law enforcement. And that's the part that most people are leaving out. They're backed by law enforcement. So when y'all talking about ICE, why ain't we talking about for ICE? Nigga, I want ICE to get some of these fucking LAPD officers out of the way. You niggas that live in towns that are 30% black, 20% black, 40% black, count your blessings. But don't be going around telling us that are dealing with this shit. Why ain't y'all speaking up for ICE? We still got an LAPD problem from people who ICE should have picked their parents up 20 years ago. If ICE did they goddamn job 20, 30 years ago, half these police officers who's fucking with us wouldn't have a job. So stop that soft shoe cooning. You niggas around the country, stop it. Just stop it. That's what's happening in Compton. Now take that to the motherfucking bank. All that N-word pass talk, nah, ain't no passes. Torre, this is what we dealing with. Ain't no passes when this is our reality. And why did that screen just disappear? There we go. Ain't no passes when this is our reality. Rocky, you all right? Hold on, let me let Rocky out. You need some water. And I be reading shit like this, and people be like, oh, the black people in LA, they just have shut the fuck up. You niggas from other parts of the country wouldn't know how to goddamn handle yourself here in LA with the shit that we under, the way our businesses get undermined. When we can put in a $5 million higher bid to buy the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza, but the Russians get it instead. You niggas don't know what the fuck time it is, talking about, oh, we need to step up for ICE. We got to deal with Russians that own the Crenshaw district, gentrifying the hell out of it. We got to deal with Armenians up in Glendale and all their goddamn insurance fraud and them coming down to where we are, doing all kind of bullshit. We got to deal with our neighborhoods being targeted. Let me see, DW said reports came out, all the Latinos are majority in LAUSD. They are underperforming English, math, science. That's because the school district don't want to teach them. Josh Brown said, I'm from Long Beach. What I'm saying is fact. Yeah. Nigga, they got the police department. Y'all niggas from another part of the country don't know shit about that. Y'all officers are either white or black. That's what most of you niggas that got shit to say about LA are dealing with. You got white officers, you got black officers. You don't have Asians like Tanaka, undersheriff here in LA. The undersheriff was a man named Tanaka, an Asian guy, and he was the one that was facilitating a lot of these gangs in the LA County Sheriff Department. Asian dude. And Tanaka wasn't no joke. So that's what's going on, which takes me to this fool, DJ Vlad.
Hit the like button. This is crazy. Crazy, man. But I bring you guys the truth, man. I don't.
You were first black woman speaker of the House here, that you were primed to probably be the first black speaker of the House in Washington, D.C. as well. Just your knowledge and your intellect, your charisma and all that you bring to it. But you decided to leave Washington, D.C. to come back home to L.A.
Well, you know, and that was not an easy decision. I have to tell you that while I was in D.C., I was still working on the same issues.
Yeah.
I was working on criminal justice reform. I was working on foster care. But the beauty of Congress that I love the most is that I was able to work on international issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though years before I was working on South Africa, never thinking I'd be able to actually go to South Africa and to be able to head up Africa policy for the House of Representatives was also an incredible honor. But I was called home because we had the crisis in our city again. And frankly, Jamie, I was flashing back to the 90s. I was flashing back. Here it was again. We had a crisis where our people were getting ready to be criminalized.
Yeah.
And
Karen Bass is a disgrace to black people. She really is. A disgrace.
A young brother who has recently moved from Ohio to sunny Southern California, Orange County to be exact, has the following question. Check it out.
I just moved to Orange County yesterday from Ohio, and if there's one thing I noticed so far.
Orange County, man, you moved to Orange County and you really think you're going to see some black people? If you want to see black people in California, the last place you need to be moving to is Orange County. Orange County does not have black history. They don't. There's no black history in Orange County. You barely got black history left in Los Angeles. You want some black history in Los Angeles, you got to go to Crenshaw, west side of Los Angeles. You got to go to Oakland. You're not going to get no black population in no damn Orange County. Orange County is Ku Klux Klan and Mexicans.
It is. Where are all the black people? Oh, wow. I mean, the weather's really nice, though. But, yeah, if y'all know any cool spots or anything, please put me on. I am definitely looking to explore.
So he wants to know, where are all the black people? Where do they hang out, right? Like, put me on, let me know, because apparently he don't see them, especially in Orange County. Orange County is very white, right? And there's a lot of Asians and Hispanics out there, but I don't know. He maybe should have done a little research before he moved out there, because in California, in general, there's
nobody with common sense moves to Orange County and then asks, where's all the black people? Orange County is the last place you need to move if you're looking for black folks.
Less than 6% of black people there. Most black people have moved. And in fact, they said most of us are starting to move to the South again, right? Because we moved from the South after slavery and all of that. But yeah, there are not that many black people there. I mean, there's some. I'm from Southern California, so I do know some, right? But let's talk about why there's not that many black people in California. Well, for one, really can't afford to live there. The median price of a house to buy, if you were going to do that, right, is over $800,000. And rent in California is extremely high. You're talking, probably, $3,000 give or take on average to rent something decent. Okay. The other thing is the politics there is not friendly to Black Americans. Now, some will say that it's not really friendly to a lot of people, but I'm talking about Black Americans. See, the Democrats, because it is a democratically ran state, they advocate for everybody but Black Americans. Right now, since you're there, you probably see them advocating for immigrants, and not immigrants that are there legally. We're talking about illegal immigrants. You're seeing people like Mayor Karen Bass in Los Angeles. She's fighting for the immigrants, and Gavin Newsom, who's the governor, he's fighting back and forth for Trump and ICE, talking about what they can and can't do, leave the illegal immigrants alone, and things like that. So while they're fighting for them, they ignore Black Americans. And then I don't know if you've heard about the California Legislative Black Caucus. They're supposed to be advocating for Black people there in California. No, they don't do that. And I don't know if you heard about last year when they were supposed to go put those reparations bills on the floor for Gavin Newsom to veto them or vote on them. They didn't even do that. I don't know if you saw Isaac Bryan there with his arms crossed like, they might be out there thinking I'm doing something, but I'm not. I don't know if you know all of that, but yeah, Black people was just not favorable for us there. Now, it used to be a whole lot of Black people in California, but again, not so much. So while you're there, you might find some. Sure, there's some. But if you're looking for hubs and, whole neighborhoods and by the way, one of the only Black neighborhoods that were left, Altadena, got burnt down. And as we speak, you got big time developers and corporations going in there and they trying to snatch the land up. And I heard they're being successful. They're snatching the land up because those Black folks there can't afford to stay. For one, a lot of them, their insurance was canceled and they just do not have the funds to rebuild because, again, they were burnt out during, fire season that took out a whole lot of places in California. Yeah, Black neighborhood was one of them. So, you move to California and listen, I don't blame you. I'm trying to get back there myself. Oh, yes, you can believe that. But we'll be back eventually. But in the meantime, while you're there by yourself, you might need to maybe get politically involved and see what you can do to try to change the climate.
Listen, if you know what you're talking about and you want to speak on this issue, hold on. Shout out to Demetria.
Advocate for your people while you're there since you're looking for us. But yeah, there's a whole lot of other places you could have went to find Black people other than California. But as I said, we'll be back. We just ain't there right now. So anyway, y'all let me know what you think of that. And for more insightful commentary.
Yeah. True story. You all about the fame and glory. I'm giving you the true story. Now, let's move on over to this. I want y'all to get a load of this conversation right here.
All right, so I posted this the other day, or yesterday, I should say, on our community page, and I want y'all to take a look at this again because it's very important. And the reason why this is important because it really highlights why it is important for us to point out, separate, or delineate Black American, or what we call Black American, from everybody else. And so what you see on your screen here, this is the net worth by race. Now, this is in Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles or LA is a very extreme case because it's very expensive. We lived in Los Angeles, so yeah, it's very expensive out there, okay? But Los Angeles, if you know the history of Los Angeles, at least part of it, has a very deep Black American history. Black Americans, like a lot of places, helped build that city. And but there's a lot of deep history there, and Black people have been very much a part of the roots of that city. But let's take a look at this according to what they have on the site here. Let's look at the net worth by race. Okay, shall we? So it's on the screen. I just want to make sure it's on the screen. Okay, so you got an African Black, 72,000 is the median income, all right, which puts them above the median value. All right. Asian Indian. All right. That would be Kamala and the gang, right? Gosh, 460,000 above, which they said, which is 439,000 above the median. What in the world? Look at the Chinese. 408,200, which is 387 above the median. Filipino, 243,000, which is 222,000 above the median. These people are doing quite well so far, aren't they? Let's go on. The Japanese are killing it. 592,000, which is 571,000 above the median value. Now look at the Koreans. Koreans, yeah, 23.4. But isn't it interesting? Let's stop here for a second. They're 23.4, which is 2,400 above the median value. Now, this is a very interesting one as I'm sitting here looking at this and we're just kind of going through this. This is very interesting because who controls most, if not all, the beauty supply shops, especially in LA? I can answer that one because even when we were living out there, it was Koreans. But they're 2,400 above the median income, the median value, sorry. Let's look at Mexicans. Mexicans are 3,500, which is 17.5 below the median value. So Mexicans right there. Let's look at this one here. Other Latino. You like that accent, huh? 42.5, which is 21.5 above the median income. All right, let's go to Vietnamese. 61.5, which is 40,500 above the median value. And of course, let's look at white folks. 355,000, which is 334 above the median. Well, now let's go to U.S. black. 4,000, which is 17,000 below the median value. Do you see that? So the difference between the U.S. blacks and Mexicans is a difference of $500. We're actually $500 net worth. We're $500 more valuable, quote unquote, than Mexicans. It's a difference of $500, according to this. Now, again, this is in Los Angeles, which is an extreme case. But the reason why I want to target on Los Angeles here is because of the fact in 4 years, they're going to have the Olympics. And as someone who has lived in a city where the Olympics, I saw it before it came, when it came, and then afterwards, I can tell you right now that by the time the Olympics comes and goes from Los Angeles, what the U.S. black demographic in the Los Angeles area is going to be decimated. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because anytime that you're talking 4 years from now, what we know as the U.S. black population in terms of median value, this is going to be decimated. Because as you know, that anytime the Olympics comes into a city or in a town or a country or whatever, or in this case is based in the city, everything goes up. It becomes more expensive. And as someone who's lived in Pasadena, someone who's lived in Orange County and all that, I could tell you that even then it was very expensive to live there. I can't even imagine what it's like now. So it's gone. In 4 years, this right here, this little demographic right here that you see right here, in 4 years, they're going to be gone. This is how real this is. So when people flip out and trip out when you're asking, hey, what are the specific policies for Black Americans? This is why we're asking that. This is why this question is being asked. This is why I don't, when you see the boule types that are getting excited because Beyonce going to be performing at the DNC next week or whenever it is. Or you got Steve Harvey, be quiet, Dwayne. You got Steve Harvey out here that's out here talking about telling black folks, y'all better be quiet because I'm just going to be lobbing her alley-oop. That's all I'm doing. I ain't going to be asking her no hard questions. See, Steve Harvey can get a house in LA and be cool. But the black folks that live in the areas in LA have been there traditionally for years and years and years. In 4 years, they ain't going to have a place. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm just showing you this is what it looks like. And this is why, so when you hear black people saying, well, some black people saying, you just caught up on just her skin color. No, you are. We're looking at policies. This is a danger zone right here. All these, even African blacks, look at you, for the Africans in the house. Do you see why now we have to delineate ourselves in terms of economics? Because I can tell you right now, this group ain't trying to lift up U.S. blacks. They're not. This is a race. What you're looking at is a race to the top. And according to this, the Japanese are winning they doing quite well in the LA area. All right. So so this website, this is colorofwealth.org. And I would encourage you to check it out. They have different cities on here. Check it out though. Okay. But the LA one, I think, is worth the focus because they are going to have the Olympics by 2028, the Olympics is coming, which means that there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be displaced by the time the Olympics comes. Yeah. Now, so for us, I actually lived in Atlanta just right before the Olympics came. And then I was down there while the Olympics was happening. And then after the Olympics left. And so it gave me a very interesting seat to observe the changes that took place just within in that time span as Atlanta was getting flushed with a whole bunch of money. There's a lot of people relocating to Atlanta during that time. And it gave me an opportunity to see this rapid change that was taking place. And one of the things that was very noteworthy was how the communities that had a lot of black history to them, and they've been there for a long time. You even had two churches that were there, almost close to 100 years. I think maybe one was probably a little bit over 100 years. Rapid change was taking place where eventually over time, this was kind of after the Olympics, those churches got pushed out. The city compensated them in that particular case. But what was happening was that the fact that change was taking place, this was something that was being trumpeted from every whatever, that, Atlanta is progressing. This is the
Make sure that you guys hit the like button right here. This is knowledge for you, right? Trying to put y'all up on game about what's happening and what's really going on. Y'all better pay attention. Like, listening to gangbang content in 2026 is dumb. These gangbangers in LA don't even have their own communities. They got to share their hoods with Mexican, and the community is majority Mexican Latino. So why do I want to hear somebody talk about gangbanging and stupidity when you're being gentrified out of your own community? Your hood is now Mexico. It is a barrio. You can't even call it a hood no more. I'm talking to brothers in Compton. I'm talking about brothers in South Central. I'm talking to brothers all across Los Angeles County. Wake up and quit being stupid. It ain't a hood no more. It is a barrio. Mexicans run your neighborhood now, fool. Compton is 75% Mexican Latino. So what does that let you know?
What's to be and all of that. But what about the people who were on the lower end of the economic scale? What about them? And the reason why I want to focus in on that is because of the fact that this is what's coming to the people in LA, the black Americans that have called the city of Los Angeles their home for generations. You know, if you know anything about the rich history of Los Angeles, you know that Black Americans helped put that city together, helped put that city on the map. And it's amazing history, and I would encourage anybody to take a look at it. But if you look at that chart that I just showed you earlier, you can see right in your face that once this Olympics comes in, I believe this is going to be the final wave that's really going to push out Black Americans who have called that place home for a long time. It's going to push them out. I mean, it's just inevitable. And so what I want you to do is take a look at these clips here that I'm about to show you, because this is what happened in the city of Atlanta.
Make sure that you guys bless that like button. If you haven't blessed the like button and you are a foundational Black American, you are committing a crime. This right here is some of the realest content you're going to get. Them guys that go to No Jumper only talk about gangbanging and stupidity while their community becomes Mexico, but they ignore the real problems. They ignore the fact that Blacks are being gentrified out of their communities. I don't listen to gangbangers talk about dumb stuff. I don't listen to that. You're fighting for nothing. If you are Crip and Blood in Los Angeles, what are you fighting for? If your community is majority Mexican Latino, what are you fighting for now? You get on the internet to promote gangbanging while your hood looks like Mexico, homie. Your priorities are backwards. You're the minority in your own community, but you come to the internet to promote Black on Black violence, stupidity, pure ignorance. And the subscribers are dumb enough to listen to that, not realizing that these LA gangbangers who promote Black on Black violence, their communities is majority Mexican Latino. It is now Mexico. So why do you want to hear an ignorant gangbanger from Los Angeles talk about stupidity when his hood is now Mexico? Once you become the majority in your community, it ain't a hood no more. It is now a barrio because it's majority Latino Mexican. There's no way that I'm going to listen to these gangbangers promote stupidity when their communities are now Mexico all over Los Angeles County. Mexicans got neighborhoods in Los Angeles County where they don't share their communities with Blacks. Every Black gang in Los Angeles is sharing their community with the Mexicans. There's no more Black communities in Los Angeles. They're sharing it with the Mexicans. But if you go to El Monte, Mexicans don't share their communities with Blacks. If you go to East LA, Mexicans don't share their communities with Blacks. If you go to Whittier, Mexicans in Whittier don't share their communities with Blacks. If you go to any one of these cities in Los Angeles County that I mentioned, you will realize that these Mexicans don't share their communities with Black folks. But you can't go to one community in Los Angeles where it's pure Black and no Mexicans. Every Black community in Los Angeles has a large Mexican population in it. Blacks don't have their communities to themselves. They're sharing their communities with Mexicans. So I don't want to hear no ignorant guy from Los Angeles promote gangbanging. I don't want to hear it when your hood is majority Mexican now. I don't want to hear that stupid shit.
Let's take a look at those.
Another thing from the last podcast that I learned was, because I think we got into gentrification a bit, and we were talking about, you were talking about how white people didn't want to live in the same area code and street as Black people. So on Moreland,
that's why once it crosses ponds,
they changed right when it crosses, when Moreland Street crosses Ponce de Leon, right after that it becomes Briarcliff Road. And they changed the zip code to be a different zip code and everything because they didn't want it to be associated with Black people.
That's redlining and that's white flight.
That the city of Atlanta proper focused on.
They're not playing with y'all. So to be on some foolishness right now as Black folks, I ain't even pleading with y'all no more. I'm just showing you what this white man is doing. He's pushing you out of your own community, man.
Okay, so finally, so just imagine for a moment, you know, for the people, the remaining Black Americans that are in Los Angeles, who are renting, which is probably a good percentage of them. You know, between now and 2028, those rents are going to go up. And so once those rents go up, it's just a matter of time. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to see black people in Los Angeles at all, because you got people of all colors and races or whatever that still work in that city. So you'll always see them around. But as far as the legacy is concerned, that part is being pushed out economically, and you're going to see it as we're getting closer and closer to the 2028 Olympics. I know at the time of this recording, it may seem like a long way away, but listen, time is moving so fast now. Before we blink, we will be there. In fact, the city right now is already preparing, for these Olympics as we're speaking right now. And so it's something to really think about. And I think this is a very important issue to talk about, because Los Angeles actually provides us with a really good example of things to come for a lot of Black Americans in this country. This is why you're seeing a lot of pushback in this, this wave of Kamala Harris, and we just have to vote for her based on her color alone. And, we want to see, she's an AKA, she's going to possibly be sworn in, with a Delta, by Justice Ketanji, and this is coming out of the mouth of comedian Ricky Smiley, who's so giddy and excited about that. But when it comes to this particular issue right here, where literally you're talking about the remains of a Black community that has called Los Angeles its home for a long time, literally being snuffed out in about 4 years or so. And so this should be of great concern. And this is why you're seeing a growing number of Black Americans take to the internet and are saying that, hey, listen, we are more concerned about the policies. What are the tangible policies do you have specifically for Black Americans to stop this process? Because again, going back to the chart, you can see who the ones that are winning, and you can see the ones that are losing. And unfortunately, for cities like the city of Los Angeles, Black Americans have been losing for a very long time there. And I think this is something that we need to talk about, and neither party seems to care about it, but we do need to care about it. But I wanted to bring this topic to your attention because, again, in about 4 years or so at the time of this recording, the conversations are going to be just like what we're having right now. So thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you next time. And I just finished editing.
So that brother just told you the truth. Fresh out of the booth, he told you the truth.
Los Angeles men were charged with firebombing African Americans living in a heavily Hispanic 7 Los Angeles men were charged with firebombing African Americans living in a heavily Hispanic area in 2014. They were charged in a 10-count indictment unsealed in federal court Thursday. They were also charged for their roles in a racketeering enterprise that used violence and intimidation. Justice reporter Paula Reed is in Washington to discuss it all. Paula, the Justice Department says this is one of the largest civil rights indictments in local history. What are prosecutors alleging?
That's right, Elaine. This is one of the biggest cases that they've brought in under the civil rights statute in quite some time, which is also part of why it took so long to actually get this indictment, approximately 2 years. Prosecutors allege a barbaric plan to attack and intimidate African-American residents of the Ramona Gardens housing complex in East Los Angeles. Now, this complex is about 95% Hispanic and about 3% African-American. First, this group started with threats, and then they moved on to firebombs. And Elaine, they say this was a very sophisticated plot. They purchased disguises, gloves, bomb-making materials, and then they divided themselves into 2 teams, and everybody had a very specific task. One person, his job was to break the windows. The next person would light the firebomb, and the final guy would throw the firebomb inside the residence. They were even savvy enough to leave their cell phones behind to avoid being able to be traced by law enforcement.
So disturbing. These men, Paula, I understand, were also charged with racketeering, and the indictment says that families, including children, were among the victims. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. Many of the residents that were targeted, children were home. Many of them were minors. In fact, Elaine, one woman, she was sitting with her baby on the couch in the living room right before the firebomb was thrown into her house. Now, other families who weren't specifically firebombed, they reported that mixed race children were verbally threatened by members of this gang. So it's clear that children were certainly not spared from this intimidation.
Do we know, Paula, has this gang been on law enforcement's radar before?
Yes, the Hazard Street Gang has been on law enforcement's radar since about the 1940s. They are described as a multi-generational Latino street gang that originated in East Los Angeles, and they were particularly focused on driving African-American residents off their turf. And the Ramona Gardens apartment complex is one area where they are described as a
law enforcement's radar before?
Yes, the Hazard Street Gang has been on law enforcement's radar since about the 1940s. They are described as a multi-generational Latino street gang that originated in East Los Angeles, and they were particularly focused on driving African-American residents off their turf. And the Ramona Gardens apartment complex is one area where they considered their turf. Now these 7 men face between a life sentence and 100 years in prison.
Disturbing case to hear about children being targeted as well. Paula Reed there in Washington for us.
Other news now, strong feelings tonight after a town hall meeting at the Ramona Gardens housing project in Boyle Heights.
The meeting was called after a firebomb attack on 4 homes in that area, and now there are growing fears it could rekindle racial tension. Ramona Gardens is a public housing development located just north of the 10 freeway in the community of Boyle Heights. It's been plagued by gang and drug activity.
KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us from Boyle Heights now with more on the attack and reaction. Dave.
Well, that's right, Sylvia and Lena. We're outside the Hollenbeck division of the LAPD, where extra patrols have been assigned to work Ramona Gardens. You know, an effort to send out a message to the residents there that the police are on the case and things will be safe, as was the community meeting called this afternoon. Same thing, where the police wanted to say to the people here, look, we're working it, we're on top of things, we'll give you the answers that we have, and this is not the time to panic. This still photo taken at the scene of the attack at the Ramona Gardens housing project in Boyle Heights after midnight Sunday, early Monday morning, was posted on the Mayor Sam's Sister City website. The community meeting was called by police and fire officials after some neighbors expressed concerns that African Americans live in 3 of the 4 units that were attacked with Molotov cocktails in this largely Latino community.
We are trying to determine motive. We are trying to determine whether it is gang related or if there is some type of hate crime issue involved.
But some of those who attended the meeting, like Lynette McDaniel, who has lived in Ramona Gardens for only 90 days, says she's had enough and isn't waiting around to get the answers, but is moving out ASAP.
I don't want to be around this. I don't want to have my daughter around this at all. So it's better for her. I'll be all right. But this, I don't know what to say about it. And I don't want to continue to deal with it. So, you know, I'm going to move on.
The rumor mill in this community is filled with speculation that the attack may have been racially motivated or gang related. And the police asked us not to bring cameras into the community meeting because they said some residents would not speak out if news cameras were present for fear of retaliation. This man who attended the meeting with his young daughter confirmed there is a climate of fear for some who live here.
You know, some people, if somebody saw something, you know, people are afraid to speak.
But others who attended said after the meeting there is no racial tension in Ramona Gardens, and this lady warned that people shouldn't jump to conclusions about who carried out the attack before the facts are in.
We don't know who did it. LAPD doesn't know who did it. So why do the news say that Hispanics and African Americans are at war when we're not? We're all friends here. I have African American friends. We're not at war.
This man who didn't want his name used charged the news media is hyping the story to get more readers and viewers without waiting for the police to complete their investigation.
Something like this happens or something they insinuate or they think happened, and right away people want to make a story out of it because, you know, stories sell.
Yeah.
Stories bring up the ratings. Stories is what promotes people, but they don't ever want to talk about the good that has come out of this community.
Well, now Ramona Gardens does have a history of racial tension and gang activity, but not in recent years where the area has been fairly peaceful. Now, police say no one was injured in these firebomb attacks and there was only minor damage. We're live in Boyle Heights. Dave Bryan, KCAL 9 News.
Dave, thank you.
Big Hazard Street gang. One of them, named Carlos Hernandez, who organized a racial motivated firebomb attack in Boyle Heights, has pleaded guilty to 5 felonies, including using fire and carrying explosives to bomb black people. There was a point in time, man, where California had a high black population. Now it's down to 6%. And one of the reasons why is because of things like this.
Cause then they were, well, about a couple of years ago, I think with the M16, was it?
MS-13.
Yeah, they probably been like another gang that was out there targeting black people.
Yeah.
A federal judge today sentenced Jose Salcedo, seen here in court sketches, to 13 years in prison for A federal judge today sentenced Jose Salcedo, seen here in court sketches, to 13 years in prison for his role in a civil rights conspiracy to commit a hate crime. That hate crime, the Boyle Heights firebombings of several African-American families in May of 2014.
The traumatic harm that was caused by being firebombed in your own house while you're sleeping with your kids and grandparents, I think is immeasurable.
Prosecutors say Salcedo and 7 other men, all members of the same Latino gang, seen in this surveillance video, threw Molotov cocktails into the homes of black families living in the Ramona Gardens housing project.
They did it knowing that bodily harm was likely, including to children, and then they did it in order to intimidate and interfere with African Americans living there, and they've all pled guilty.
Salcedo, also known as Little Mo, offered a brief apology in court. His defense attorney adding Salcedo had a difficult childhood and started taking drugs at the age of 12. With credit for prison time already served for another offense, Salcedo will serve 9 years in prison.
Hopefully it sends the best kind of message to the worst kind of crime, and we'll keep seeking justice for those people, for that community, let them know that we will not tolerate racial divide, attempts at racial divide. Racial crimes are the most significant that the federal government can intervene and do.
The sentence includes additional restrictions after Salcedo's release, among them that he cannot live in the Ramona Gardens housing complex or anywhere near his gang's territory. The other 7 suspects will be sentenced over the next several months, beginning in September.
See, I've been telling y'all, man. I'm gonna show y'all another video when I tell you about these Mexicans, man. Now they're gonna deny this, but I'm giving you the evidence.
Authorities handing down indictments against nearly 150 gang members. Raids are underway as federal and local officials go on the hunt for the suspects. Welcome back to Eyewitness News at 11:30. I'm John Gregory and for Philip Palmer.
And I'm Leslie Sykes. The Barrio Hawaiian Garden street gang is accused of targeting blacks in a series of shootings and other crimes. Eyewitness News reporter Leo Stallworth is live in Lakewood, where a news conference is underway right now. Leo.
Exactly. Authorities are still in the middle of their news conference here in Lakewood, where they say they have made a huge takedown of the gang. They seized dozens and dozens of weapons. You can see the weapons. They're laid out on tables on either side of the podium. There are dozens and dozens of guns, all types of guns, handguns, rifles, assault rifles. Now, federal and local agents say they've indicted nearly 150 members of a predominantly Latino gang, mainly operating in the Hawaiian Gardens area. Agents say the members of the gang are accused of a series of shootings and other crimes. Authorities say federal racketeering indictments detailing guns, drugs, and more are related to the crimes. They say members of the gang are accused of targeting blacks in a number of attacks. Authorities say the motive was hate. Agents say they started tracking the gang about 4 years ago after a member of the gang was arrested and later convicted and sentenced to death in the murder of L.A. County Sheriff Deputy Jerry Ortiz.
Following the murder of Deputy Ortiz, the Sheriff's Department sought federal and local assistance to help destroy the Hawaiian Gardens gang. Working together, federal, local, and state law enforcement, we investigated the gang and its affiliates. We now have the largest gang takedown in United States history. Today, we have unsealed 5 federal indictments that name a total of 147 defendants. This morning, 63 of those defendants named in the indictment were arrested.
And authorities are still holding their news conference. They're in the Q&A portion of their news conference at this point. Now, authorities say if convicted, many of the gang members indicted could end up in prison for at least 20 years. Some of them could be locked up for life. Live in Lakewood, Leo Stallworth, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Leo, thank you. We continue to follow breaking news out of Ventura, where authorities say a child was hurt.
In Eye on America, the struggle against gang crime. On the national front, many Americans
without being harassed. Walking to the corner store or stopping at which, although ethnically diverse, was predominantly Latino during the moved into Highland Park, which the gang openly resented. Members made it clear that they hated the increase in black residents and viewed Highland Park as exclusively theirs. The gang felt their community was being invaded. They would go on missions where they would commit crimes, look for ops, and paint graffiti. Much of that graffiti had racist messages and was often sprayed on the homes of black residents. On these missions, members were almost always armed and often carried police scanners. Avenue's members would meet regularly to discuss the gang's business and how they wouldn't allow African Americans to, quote, infest their neighborhood. The more the black population grew, the more violence followed. The gang would use whatever means necessary to drive African Americans out of Highland Park, including threats, beatings, robberies, shootings, and even murder. They wanted to make sure black residents couldn't walk the streets, spend time in the local parks, or even pass through the neighborhood. Celeste Schaefer lived in Highland Park with her family from 1987 until 1997, and during that decade, they were relentlessly harassed by members of the Avenue's gang. Celeste herself couldn't even run simple errands without being harassed. Walking to the corner store or stopping at a taco truck meant being confronted with slurs. Gang members would call her a black bitch, that she didn't belong in the neighborhood and needed to leave. Her children were also constant targets. Her daughters, Ebony and Celeste, were chased into a store by Avenue's members who were screaming racial slurs at them. But it was her son, Don Petrie, who suffered the most. Don and his friends were harassed relentlessly. He was chased, assaulted, and constantly called racial slurs, with Avenue's members making it clear that he wasn't welcome in their neighborhood. Years later, Don would identify Gilbert, Alejandro, and Porfirio as some of the gang members who had personally harassed and attacked him. Once at the Montecito Recreation Center, Don and his black friends were playing basketball inside, while Avenue's members gathered outside at the park for a meeting. The man running the gym warned them to stay inside, because in his word,
now this is the Avenue's gang in Northeast LA. They don't like blacks living in that community, man. Everything that I talk about, I bring you guys the receipts. We give you the stats, we give you the facts. We talk about hood politics. We also break down things from a political perspective. So the LA City Council 2 years ago, Nuri Martinez, the LA City Council was ran by Mexicans and Latinos. They were caught on audio saying a lot of racist things about blacks, calling us monkeys, and a lot of disparaging things. So this is deeper than gang culture. You see anti-blackness in politics when it comes to Mexicans. If you don't believe me, look up Nuri Martinez and the Los Angeles City Council and the negative things that they had to say about black folks 2 years ago. You ain't got to take my word for it. I give you the evidence.
There were going to be problems. Eventually, Don and his friends slipped out the back to avoid getting harassed, but he never felt safe enough to go there again. Another time, Don and his friend Christopher Bowser were walking through a park when an Avenues member pulled a gun on them, telling them to get out of the neighborhood and never come back. Christopher himself endured more than 5 years of harassment and threats from Avenues members because, in their words, he was black and had the audacity to walk through the neighborhood like it was his. He was beaten, called racial slurs, and told to stay out of Highland Park, but Christopher refused to move away or spend time in the area. At various bus stops around Highland Park, Don was threatened, told he wasn't welcome, and was even shot at. He stopped using those stops entirely. Outside a movie theater, Avenues members hurled slurs at him and his girlfriend, threw trash cans at them, and ordered them out of the neighborhood. He never returned to that theater. The same happened at a grocery store. Don would also be harassed by gang members who were circling the neighborhood in their cars. On one occasion, Alejandro jumped out of a car with a gun and chased Don all the way back to his house. In another, gang members drove onto the wrong side of the street just to try to run him over. At a separate time, they tried running over both Don and Christopher when they were walking together. Outside a liquor store, Avenues members threw bottles at them while shouting slurs and demanding they get out of the neighborhood. Don came home one day to find 2 chalk body outlines scrawled across his driveway, along with the words Avenues 43rd, N-word stay out, and we don't want you here, N-words. By 1997, the relentless harassment and constant fear became too much. Terrified that her children might one day be killed, Celeste made the decision to move her family out of Highland Park. Around 1997 or 1998, Alejandro, Porfirio, Jesse, and another Avenues member, Merced Cambero Jr., were driving through Highland Park when they saw a black man using a payphone outside Ramona Hall. One of them pointed him out and said,
"Shout out to Suzanne for blessing us with a 5. I appreciate you, Suzanne. Shout out to the beautiful black sisters that have been supporting the platform. I appreciate you. Shout out to Jocelyn Street for blessing us with a 15. I appreciate you. FBA stand up. Shout out to the beautiful black women. Shout out to my brother Lim Hendricks for blessing us with a 25. Shout out to my brother Lim Hendricks for supporting that Cash App, man. Shout out to my girl Stephanie for blessing us with a 20 on that Cash App. Shout out to the FBA, the Foundational Black Americans who love to hear the truth. Listen, homie, King Supreme is showing you how racist Mexicans are in California. Mexicans don't want you living in their communities. If you go to a predominant Mexican community in Los Angeles, you're going to see the racism. Blacks in Los Angeles don't have their communities to themselves anymore. They share with Mexicans. On the other hand, Mexicans have communities where they don't share. Mexicans got communities that they don't have to share with black folks. Every black community you go in, every black community in Los Angeles County has a significant Mexican population. Right? If you go to the Crenshaw district, you got Mexicans selling tacos in the Crenshaw district. If you go to Crenshaw and Stocker, you got Mexicans over there now selling tacos in the black community. But Mexicans ain't gonna let you sell barbecue ribs in East LA on Cesar Chavez Boulevard. They ain't gonna let you do that. The Mexicans gonna shut you down.
Look at this N-word on the phone. They stopped the car and walked over to confront him. Poor time, they tried running over both.
Now, Mexicans are going to look at this and say, man, this is old. Man, this happened in the 2000s, homie. All this stuff I'm showing you happened in the 2000s. I'm not talking about what happened in the 1940s and 50s. This stuff happened in the 2000s and the late 90s. Stop it. I'm giving you the facts about the anti-black racism that comes from the Mexican Latino community. Compton is now 75% Latino. So what does that let you know?
Both Don and Christopher when they were walking together. Outside a liquor store, Avenues members threw bottles at them while shouting slurs and demanding they get out of the neighborhood. Don came home one day to find 2 chalk body outlines scrawled across his driveway, along with the words Avenues 43rd, N-word stay out, and we don't want you here, N-words. By 1997, the relentless harassment and constant fear became too much. Terrified that her children might one day be killed, Celeste made the decision to move her family out of Highland Park. Around 1997 or 1998, Alejandro, Porfirio, Jesse, and another Avenues member, Merced Cambero Jr., were driving through Highland Park when they saw a black man using a payphone outside Ramona Hall. One of them pointed him out and said, "Look at this f***ing N-word on the phone." They stopped the car and walked over to confront him. Porfirio struck the man in the head with a dent puller. The man tried to run, but the gang members chased him down, and when they caught up with him, they continued beating him. In 1998, at Sycamore Park, Jose and Merced were walking Jose's dog when a black student passed by. Merced suddenly set the dog on him, shouting, "Get him, get the N-word." Jose was also yelling racial slurs at the student. Luckily, the student managed to escape before the dog could reach him, and he wasn't physically harmed. In 1999, while hanging out at Montecito Park, Jesse, Gilbert, and Alejandro spotted a homeless black man walking through the park. They looked at each other and said, "Look at this f***ing N-word," before attacking him. During the beating, Gilbert pistol whipped the man so hard that his gun went off, and the sound of the gunshot caused them to scatter and run. There were other incidents at Montecito Park as well. Once, Avenues members stormed into the gym where African Americans were playing basketball. They shouted slurs at them and eventually chased them out of the gym and into the street. On the night of April 18th, 1999, Gilbert, Merced, Alejandro, Fernando, Jesse, and Jose piled into a stolen Chevy van, carrying with them spray paint and a police scanner. Their plan for the night was to commit crimes, spray paint walls, and maybe even find some ops. Gilbert had a 9mm Ruger handgun, Merced had a .357 revolver, and Jose had a shotgun. Alejandro drove the van with Fernando riding shotgun. They spent hours cruising through Highland Park, stopping now and then to scrawl graffiti on walls. Eventually, they decided to call it a night and started heading back toward 43rd Avenue. But around 3:30 a.m., as they turned onto 52nd Avenue, Alejandro spotted Kenneth Wilson, a black man, trying to park his Cadillac after dropping off his nephew, Julius Williams, who had been with him at a club earlier that night. Pointing Kenneth out, Alejandro reportedly said, "Hey, you guys want to kill an N-word?" The others agreed without hesitation. Kenneth wasn't an op, and they didn't know him at all. Their main issue with him was his race. Alejandro double-parked the van. Gilbert, Merced, and Jose then jumped out with their guns, while Alejandro, Fernando, and Jesse stayed behind in the van to act as lookouts. At first, Kenneth's Cadillac pulled away, but then he circled back, making a U-turn and driving slowly down 52nd Avenue toward the van. Then the three opened fire. Merced fired once with his .357, hitting Kenneth in the back of the neck. Jose unloaded 5 shotgun blasts into the Cadillac, and Gilbert fired at the car twice with his Ruger. The Cadillac swerved and crashed into a parked car. Merced's single bullet had severed Kenneth's carotid artery. He died within minutes. Afterward, the shooters ran back to the van and drove off to Ulysses Street, where Gilbert and Alejandro lived. On the way, Merced bragged that he shot first and hit Kenneth, saying that by the time the other guys fired their guns, Kenneth was already dead. Gilbert hid the guns at his house while Alejandro and Fernando got rid of the van. When the police got to the crime scene, they noticed that the Cadillac had a bunch of bullet holes and shotgun damage. The rear window was shot out. There were bullet marks on the trunk and the right rear side of the car, and a bullet hole in the rear passenger side door window. Inside the car, investigators found shotgun pellets, fragments of bullet jackets, and shell casings. A firearms examiner later confirmed the 3 different weapons that were used in the shooting. After the shooting, Gilbert told his girlfriend, Anita Montano, that the police were looking for him for the murder and called Kenneth a derogatory racial slur in Spanish. Just 2 months before Kenneth was killed, on February 21st, 1999, Renee and Jaime Cerda were murdered by Saul Laudello, a member of the White Fence Gang. Saul was later convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole for those killings. After the Cerda murders, Saul testified that he sold several firearms to Gilbert, who he first met in county jail back in 1997. Among the guns he sold was a 9mm Ruger. Gilbert himself admitted that he bought the weapon from Saul, and Jose also recalled Gilbert telling him that he'd gotten the 9mm from a White Fence Gang member he met in prison in 1997. Ballistics confirmed that the same 9mm Ruger Gilbert used in Kenneth's murder was the same weapon used in the Cerda killings. The bullets and shell casings from Kenneth's Cadillac were fired from the very same Ruger that was used to kill the Cerdas. In July 2000, Tanya Alleman and her black boyfriend Mike Sampson were walking through Highland Park when a car full of Hispanic men drove past and yelled a racial slur in Spanish at Mike. The couple kept walking, but the car quickly pulled over. 2 men jumped out, and one of them was holding a red metal club. As they approached Mike, one shouted, "F***ing N-word," and threatened to kill him. Tanya ran across the street to call the police. When she looked back, she saw Mike being...
I want you guys to understand this. All this stuff is happening in predominant Mexican communities. This is not South Central. This is not Compton. You don't have black people in these areas, and you don't have black gangs in these areas. You might have 5 black people at the most that live in these predominant Mexican communities. So when blacks move in these predominant Mexican communities, you become a target. You become a victim of racially motivated attacks. I'm showing these videos to let you know how Mexicans and predominant Mexican communities feel about blacks. These are documented facts. I'm not making any of this up. You can look it up yourself. It is documented, right? Mexicans don't like blacks moving to their communities. This is a prime example. Compton is now 75% Mexican Latino. So what does that let you know?
Kenneth's Cadillac were fired from the very same Ruger that was used to kill the Cerdas. In July 2000, Tanya Alleman and her black boyfriend Mike Sampson were walking through Highland Park when a car full of Hispanic men drove past and yelled a racial slur in Spanish at Mike. The couple kept walking, but the car quickly pulled over. 2 men jumped out, and one of them was holding a red metal club. As they approached Mike, one shouted, "F***ing N-word," and threatened to kill him. Tanya ran across the street to call the police. When she looked back, she saw Mike being beaten with the club. After the assault, the attackers ran back to their car and sped off. Later, Tanya and Mike gave police a detailed description of the men and their vehicle. That same night, an LAPD officer spotted a car that matched the description and pulled it over. One passenger bolted and ran, but the driver, Fernando, stayed behind and identified himself. Inside the car, officers found 2 police scanners in the same red metal club that Tanya described. At a separate incident, Jesse and Gilbert saw a black teenager standing outside a Jack-in-the-Box in Highland Park. Jesse walked up to him and said, "What's up, N-word," before pulling a knife and trying to stab him. The teenager spotted the blade just in time and ran straight into the street and into oncoming traffic to get away. Another resident, Dagan Wallace, also became a target of Avenue's harassment. On September 3, 2000, Dagan was in his yard listening to music when several gang members walked up to him and made it clear who they were. One pulled out a gun, pointed it at him, and said, "What's up, N-word?" Terrified, Dagan ran inside and called the police. A short time later, he was confronted again, this time as he was getting out of his car. The gang hurled more slurs, even calling him a monkey. In the fall of 2000, Jimmy Israel was living in Highland Park with his brother and sister, Patricia. The siblings often used walkie-talkies to stay in touch, but their conversations were constantly hijacked by voices identifying themselves as Avenue's members. On one occasion, the intruder cut in and said, "You N-words need to get off our block. We are going to burn down your house." Similar threats were made again and again. Jimmy eventually realized that the people breaking into their calls were the Hispanic men who gathered regularly at a house just down the street. Then in October 2000, the threats turned into violence. Patricia and Jimmy's nephew were riding bikes near that same house the gang members gathered at. Then Alejandro came out, knocked Patricia off her bike, and began beating and stomping on her. Jimmy quickly rode his bike to his sister and rushed over to help, but Alejandro pulled a box cutter and swung it at him. Jimmy dodged the blade and took cover behind a car, while another gang member continued assaulting his sister. During the attack, the man with the box cutter shouted, "I am tired of seeing you N-words on my block. It's time for you N-words to get out of here. I don't want you over here." When Jimmy got home, his mother called the police, but even the responding officer faced harassment. When he went to the gang house to investigate, members mocked him, calling him an N-word while laughing. Pedro Avalar, a Latino man, had been living in...
Right. See, Mexicans will say, oh, man, it's just a gang thing. But you have to understand that there's no black gangs in Northeast LA. There's no black gangs in East LA. There's no black gangs in El Monte. So these Mexicans are just attacking random black people for living in their communities. But Mexicans will come to YouTube and downplay it as if it's a gang thing when none of these black people are gang members. This is pure racism. This shows the level of hatred that Mexicans have for black folks, especially when you go to predominant Mexican communities. Compton is now 75% Mexicano Latino.
Highland Park since around 1994. He was close friends with Christopher Bowser. Although Pedro knew about the avenues and was even friendly with some of its members, his friendships with black people made him a target. Whenever Pedro walked around Highland Park with Christopher or his other black friends, Avenues members would go after him. They called him an N-word lover and warned that if he didn't stop hanging around with black people, they would kill him. Once, when
this Mexican dude right here, he wasn't a racist Mexican. He had black friends, but the Mexican gang member said, you keep hanging around these black people, we're going to unalive you too. You're going to get dealt with if you keep hanging around these black folks. So the Mexicans who are not racist get threatened by their people. If you don't quit hanging with them black folks, we're going to deal with you too. What did white folks do to the N-word lovers in the South? They eliminated them. They dealt with they got dealt with. So the Mexicans are taking the same playbook from the white supremacists. When these Mexicans in these areas see Mexicans that are cool with blacks, you know what they say? You keep hanging around them blacks, you're going to get your issue. So Mexicans have learned from the white supremacists. I'm going to let y'all hear I'm going to let y'all hear for yourself. This Mexican dude had black friends, and a message said, you keep hanging around them blacks, you're going to get dealt with. We're going to deal with you too. They didn't like the fact that he was cool with black folk. They didn't like it. So to all you Mexicans who are not racist, I understand what you're going through. Your people are going to say, if you hang with them N-words, we're going to deal with you too. So they are forcing non-racist Mexican people to be racist. And they're met with extreme violence if they don't be racist to black folks.
While another gang member continued assaulting his sister. During the attack, the man with the box cutter shouted, I am tired of seeing you N-words on my block. It's time for you N-words to get out of here. I don't want you over here. When Jimmy got home, his mother called the police, but even the responding officer faced harassment. When he went to the gang house to investigate, members mocked him, calling him an N-word while laughing. Pedro Avalar, a Latino man, had been living in Highland Park since around 1994. He was close friends with Christopher Bowser. Although Pedro knew about the avenues and was even friendly with some of its members, his friendships with black people made him a target. Whenever Pedro walked around Highland Park with Christopher or his other black friends, Avenues members would go after him. They called him an N-word lover and warned that if he didn't stop hanging around with black people, they would kill him. Once, when Pedro and Christopher were driving through the neighborhood in Pedro's truck, a group of Avenues members pulled up alongside them, punched Christopher in the face, and shouted racial slurs at Pedro. On October 26, 2000, Christopher himself was attacked by Porfirio and Alejandro, while waiting at a bus stop on Figueroa Street. He reported the assault to LAPD, but initially refused to press charges, scared that Avenue's members would retaliate. That changed when Alejandro later pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. Christopher then decided to cooperate. On November 30th, he identified Alejandro in a photo lineup. On December 3rd, Alejandro was arrested for the assault. Not long after, Christopher called Angela Cortez, the mother of his daughter. Angela recalled that he sounded anxious and uneasy. The call came about a week after their daughter's birthday, and Christopher told her he wanted to see his child because the Avenues were after him. Only 8 days after Alejandro's arrest, Christopher was waiting at the same bus stop he was attacked at weeks earlier. This time, Porfirio walked up and shot him several times in the head, killing him instantly. Just 5 days later, on December 16th, investigators recorded a prison call between incarcerated Avenues member Dusty Chavez and Porfirio. In that conversation, Porfirio called Christopher a racial slur in Spanish and admitted that he and Alejandro assaulted him in October. Porfirio acknowledged that Christopher reported the assault and identified Alejandro and that police raided Alejandro's home. He then told Dusty that fool's gone. On November 3rd, a month before Christopher's death, Anthony Prudhomme, another black man living in Highland Park, was shot in the head while sleeping in his own bed. An LAPD officer investigating the scene suspected that Christopher and Anthony's murders were connected and requested ballistics testing. Firearms expert Diana Paul later confirmed that both Christopher and Anthony were killed with the same .25 caliber gun. David Elmer Cruz, a former Avenues gang member, told a state court that Porfirio admitted to killing Christopher and that the murder was a hit ordered by Alejandro because Christopher had reported the October assault and was expected to testify. Eventually, Porfirio was convicted in state court of murdering both Christopher Bowser and Anthony Prudhomme. Just weeks after Kenneth Wilson's murder, Jesse shot an off-duty police officer outside a Jack in the Box. He was convicted of that attempted murder in October 1999 and sentenced to 20 years in prison. While serving time, Jesse cut a deal with investigators. He provided information about the Kenneth shooting in exchange for immunity. On February 13, 2000, Jose was arrested for Kenneth's murder. During questioning, detectives played him a taped interview of Jesse, where Jesse implicated Gilbert Merced himself and Jose in the killing. At first, Jose denied any involvement, but when detectives told him that Gilbert had ratted him out, Jose broke and confessed. He was later convicted in state court for Kenneth's murder and sentenced to 45 years to life. In 2005, federal prosecutors indicted members of the Avenues 43 gang in Los Angeles. The three-count indictment centered on civil rights violations, accusing the gang of waging the campaign of violence and terror against African Americans in Highland Park. Count 1 charged Fernando, Gilbert, Alejandro, Porfirio, and Merced with conspiring to interfere with the federally protected housing rights of African American residents in Highland Park. The killings of Kenneth Wilson and Christopher Bowser were highlighted as key overt acts in the conspiracy. Count 2 accused Gilbert, Merced, Alejandro, and Fernando of killing Kenneth because of his race and because he was exercising his right to use the public streets of Los Angeles. Count 3 charged those same 4 men with possessing and discharging 3 firearms during Kenneth's murder. Merced didn't go on trial with the rest of his co-defendants because he went on the run. Both Jose and Jesse became key government witnesses, testifying against their fellow Avenues 43 gang members in a federal trial. On August 1, 2006, the jury convicted Gilbert Saldana, Alejandro Martinez, and Fernando Cazares on all counts. Porfirio Avila was found guilty on count 1 only. On November 20, 2006, Gilbert, Alejandro, and Fernando were each given life sentences for every count. The life terms for counts 1 and 2 would run concurrently, but the life sentence on count 3 was to run consecutively. For Gilbert, the punishment was stacked on top of life terms he was already serving in state prison for 2 other unrelated charges, 1 murder charge and an attempted murder charge. Porfirio was sentenced on January 22, 2007 to life in prison on count 1. He was already serving life sentences in state court for the murders of Christopher Bowser and Anthony Prudhomme. In 2004, the FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department put out a reward of up to $70,000 for any information that could lead to the capture of Merced Cambero Jr. For years, Merced managed to stay one step ahead of authorities. He fled across the border and hid out in Baja, Mexico, living under a false identity.
Of course he fled. One thing about Mexicans, man, they can commit crimes and flee to Mexico. He killed black folks. He ordered the unalivings of black folks. Then he fled to Mexico. There you go. Shit, I just fled to Mexico. Hey, homie, that's exactly what he did. I'll just flee to Mexico after I unalive these black folks. That's how, yeah.
This is in state court for the murders of Christopher Bowser and Anthony Prudhomme. In 2004, the FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department put out a reward of up to $70,000 for any information that could lead to the capture of Merced Cambero Jr. For years, Merced managed to stay one step ahead of authorities. He fled across the border and hid out in Baja, Mexico, living under a false identity. His run came to an end on February 3, 2017, when Mexican authorities finally tracked him down, arrested him, and turned him over to U.S. law enforcement. Merced eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. When explaining the sentence, Judge Anderson noted two key factors: Merced's acceptance of responsibility and the wishes of victims and witnesses who wanted to avoid the trauma of going through another trial.
Now, y'all see why I make these videos that I make. See, I have proof to back up everything that I'm saying. Check this out.
Welcome to Hood War Stories.
Now, listen, this is another racist Mexican gang in a harbor community of Los Angeles. Check this out. I ain't making none of this up. I prove everything I'm saying. Now you guys understand why I don't listen to these LA black podcasters who talk about black on black violence, but they never talk about this. They're sellouts. They're Sambos. They'll promote black on black violence all day, but they never talk about the black and brown issues, except for people like Bobby Ye. Imperial Vision, shout out to that brother. Outside of him and Snoopy Badass, I don't see brothers in LA talking about what's really going on between black and brown. But they'll talk about Crip and Blood nonsense all damn day. But when it comes to black folks being victimized by Mexicans, these black gangbangers who are podcasters say nothing. That is cowardly.
In this episode, I'll be discussing the 204 Street Gang. The 204 Street Gang is a Mexican-American gang located in the Harbor Gateway neighborhood of Los Angeles County. They originated in the 1980s and started off as a subclique of the Torrance Tortilla Flats. Their neighborhood stretches from Del Amo to Torrance Boulevard between Western Avenue and Dinker. Before World War II, the Harbor Gateway neighborhood was mostly vacant fields. Then came factories, which attracted workers who needed housing. Builders then filled those fields with small houses and duplexes.
Listen, I want you guys that are subscribers. It's going to take the subscribers to hold these guys accountable, because these guys couldn't make a living if it wasn't for the subscribers. So I want all you subscribers to ask these LA black podcasters, how come they ignore these black and brown issues in Los Angeles, but they only talk about black on black violence, Crip and Blood, black on black violence, but they ignore the racial issues between black and brown. Y'all need to go to their comment sections and hold them accountable. All these LA black podcasters who promote buffoonery and black on black violence all damn day, but they ignore these stories. They pretend like it's not happening. It's going to take the subscribers to hold these Sambo gangbangers accountable in Los Angeles. Once they realize that the subscribers don't respect them no more, then they'll say, what's going on? How come people ain't watching my stuff? How come they're not supporting? It's going to take the subscribers to hold these buffoons accountable. They want to promote gangbanging and black on black violence all day while ignoring the black and brown issues, while ignoring the fact that the majority of hate crimes in California are committed by Latinos against blacks. But they won't talk about that.
A wave of Mexican immigrants arrived in the 1970s. Residents themselves didn't always know what city they belonged to. The neighborhood was in Los Angeles, but had a Torrance mailing address. In competition for city services, Harbor Gateway usually lost.
Oh yeah, I can't forget about the Viral Way podcast, man. I gotta show a lot of love and respect to the Viral Way podcast, because the Viral Way podcast out of Long Beach, those are, shout out to them brothers, because they're holding Latinos accountable for their anti-black racism. So shout out to the Viral Way podcast. Shout out to Bobby Yeye. Outside of that, the rest of these brothers with podcasts in LA, they just talk about black on black violence, Crip and blood nonsense, but they never talk about the black and brown issues. And if they do, they're going to tread lightly to downplay it, to make it seem like it's really not a problem. That's why I don't listen to 95% of LA black podcasters who are gangbangers. They're Sambos.
A former resident remembers the street sweepers would only come by once a month. Streetlights didn't arrive till the late 1980s. The area had no park or no school nearby. LAPD would only patrol every once in a while. Between 1985 and 1992, Harbor Gateway was transformed. City records show about 75 houses gave way to apartment buildings, adding close to 500 units. The neighborhood gained nearly 1,500 residents, which was a 65% increase. The people who moved in were cashiers, gardeners, mechanics, and swap meet vendors, mostly coming from Mexico. Black Americans also moved in. The neighborhood's black population more than doubled, from 313 in 1990 to 835 in 2000. Many were fleeing from gang war zones of South Central, Inglewood, and Compton in search of affordable housing. Others came from the North Ontarian housing projects that were located 2 miles away from Harbor Gateway, and many came with Section 8 vouchers in hand. In 1994, Tony moved to 207th Street from Compton with a Section 8 voucher. Tony said at the housing office the neighborhood was listed as Torrance, not Harbor Gateway. She said to herself, "Oh wow, away out of Compton." Over the next 5 years, however, Tony saw numerous shootings. She and other black people didn't dare walk to the Lamo Market, which was the only grocery store in the neighborhood. During this time, the 204th Street gang started attacking black civilians in order to assert their dominance. The 204th Street gang shot at Tony's daughter and her boyfriend as they went to the movies one Friday night. Tensions worsened when a small black gang formed, the 208th Street Crips. By LA standards, the 204th Street gang was small time, with no more than a few dozen youths, but it was large enough to terrorize the neighborhood. A longtime resident once said, "We called pizza and they didn't want to deliver. The mailman was afraid. Everyone was afraid." The 204th Street members began attending meetings held by representatives of the Mexican Mafia. They reported back that they wanted them to get rid of all black people in the neighborhood. In the Harbor Gateway neighborhood, graffiti and racial shootings skyrocketed. On March 27, 1997, 11-year-old Marquise was outside playing on Harvard Boulevard. A 204th Street member then approached on a bike and opened fire. Marquise was struck by multiple bullets and died at the scene. Later on that same year, the County Human Relations Commission and the neighbors organized to fight the 204th Street gang and the blight. The city added bulletproof streetlight covers. Residents repaired holes in fences, which were used as escape routes for gang members. Girl Scouts picked up trash and painted over graffiti. Police patrol increased and the violence fell, temporarily. But the campaign was short-lived and eventually dissipated, and gang members slowly returned. By 1999, the Latino on black violence resumed. In April of that same year, Michael Richardson was shot to death by a 204th Street gang member that was on a bike in front of Tony's apartment. Tony returned to Compton shortly after that shooting. Charlene moved into her new place, thinking she was leaving gang violence behind in her West LA neighborhood. On May 21st, 2000, at around 4 p.m., Dino Downs was standing outside of his home on the 1600 block of 208th Street. Two Latino youths then drove by and started shooting. Dino was struck multiple times and he died from his injuries. A few months later, on August 25, 2000, Kent was walking to the bus stop on Harvard Boulevard. He got into a brief altercation with two 204th Street members. The 204th Street members yelled out racial slurs, then opened fire. Kent was struck by 3 bullets and died shortly after. By 2001, the 208th Street Crips, who were never rooted in the area, faded away. With police squad cars getting scarce, never stopped reporting shootings and chases. Instead, 204 members now patrol the streets. Brazenly circling 207th Street and Harbor Boulevard on bicycles. Marie moved from South Central to the street.
See, these Mexicans right here, they committed hate crimes against blacks. Why? Because there wasn't a lot of blacks living in that area in the first place. So there was no black gangs in that area to really combat these racist Mexicans who had issues with black folks. And that's just the reality, unfortunately. The Hawaiian Gardens is racist. The Mexicans in East LA are racist. The 204th Street gang in the harbor area is racist. You got Mexican gangs in the valley that are racist. So you have many Mexican gangs all over Los Angeles County who do stuff similar to this. This is anti-black racism. This is Ku Klux Klan behavior perpetrated by Mexicans against blacks. Now, why don't you guys ask all your LA podcasters who talk about gangbanging all day but never talk about this? They won't talk about the fact that Compton is now 75% Mexican Latino. They won't make videos about that. They won't make videos about the anti-black hate crimes that Mexicans commit against blacks. These LA podcasters won't talk about it. They only promote black-on-black violence. It is time for the subscribers to hold these Sambos accountable.
Brazenly circling the area faded away. With police squad cars against scares, neighbors stopped reporting shootings and chases. Instead, 204 members now patrol the streets. Brazenly circling 207th Street and Harbor Boulevard on bicycles. Marie moved from South Central with her 3 daughters in 2000, believing she'd come to Torrance. One day, black children playing on the street began screaming, "The 204s are coming!" Marie watched as 204 members drove through shooting. Black youths dove behind walls. Since then, Marie's children have not been allowed to play in front of their apartment. When she has to travel more than half a block, she drives. On October 3rd, 2001, at around 5 p.m., Pasadena High School senior Robert Hightower was visiting his sister's new apartment on the 1500 block of 204th Street. He hugged his sister as he was getting ready to leave when a 204th Street member walked up and let off shots. Robert was struck numerous times and he died shortly after. According to court testimony, the 204th Street member was upset that a black boxer had beaten a Latino in a prize fight. On October 18, 2003 at around 7 p.m., Eric Butler pulled up to the Del Amo Market to intervene after 204 members began harassing his 14-year-old stepdaughter. As Eric and his stepdaughter were leaving the market, 204 members began to open fire on his vehicle. Eric Butler died from his gunshot wounds, and his stepdaughter was shot in the back and has to live with a bullet lodged near her spine. On August 22, 2006, Carl, who was an auto shop owner, was shot in the leg outside of his 207th Street apartment. He lost his leg in his shop and is now bedridden, said his wife Danya. On December 5th, 2006, Arturo was shot to death in front of his 205th Street apartment as he was talking with friends. Witnesses say the shooter, who was masked and hooded, yelled out an anti-Mexican epithet. Arturo was a newly arrived immigrant and a cook. His murder has went unsolved. On the afternoon of December 15th, 2006, a group of 8 black American youths were socializing in a driveway on 206th Street. The group included Anthony, his sister Nicole, Nakarta, It's a Dream, Nicole's boyfriend Donald, Andre, and Cheryl Green. A gray Toyota Corolla then drove by. A young Hispanic male who was driving stopped the car briefly in front of the driveway and made a pointing gesture with his index finger to 2 men who were approaching, as if he was pointing at the group standing in the driveway. It appeared as if he was directing the 2 men who were approaching to do something. As the men approached, Nakarta saw that one of them had a large revolver in his hand, and the second man appeared to be acting as a lookout. The shooter then aimed his gun at the area where the members of the group were standing. Anthony heard the gun click twice while it was being pointed at them. Nakarta dug behind the car in the driveway and grabbed her little brother. While they took cover, she heard 5 to 7 gunshots. They then saw the gunman move his arm to the right and point the gun at Cheryl. Anthony heard 4 shots as the gun was being pointed in her direction. Anthony took off running towards the back of the house to take cover, and as he, Nicole, and Donald reached the fence at the back of the driveway, he saw the gunman point the gun towards them and heard 3 to 4 more shots. While he was helping Nicole over the fence, he saw that her pinky was hanging off and that Donald had 2 bullet wounds to his upper body. After a few minutes, he returned to the front of the house and found Cheryl on the ground, dying with a bullet wound near her heart. He drove her to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. Anthony testified that It's a Dream also had a grazed wound on the top of her head. Authorities say the shooter was angry after having a confrontation with a black male outside a nearby store earlier that day. Allegedly, the black male drove by and brandished a gun at him. Jonathan then left to get a gun and went back out seeking revenge. Jonathan was ultimately convicted of the hate crime murder. He was sentenced to 238 years. 6 days after the Shell Green murder, LAPD searched several apartments that were associated with the 204th Street gang, including the apartment where Christopher lived with his mother Karen and his sister Chanel. The police questioned Christopher at the station about the Shell Green murder and later released him. According to Jose, who was the boyfriend of Christopher's sister, there were rumors of whether Christopher was snitching about the Green murder because no one went to jail after the raid on Christopher's house. On December 28th, 2006 at around 8 p.m., Jose was with Daniel, Jonathan, Juan Carlos, Robert, and Raul in their garage. Raul and Juan Carlos were higher-ups in the gang. Juan Carlos took Jose aside and asked if he thought that Christopher was snitching. Jose said yeah, and that there was talk that Christopher was keeping a journal about 204th Street gang activity. Juan Carlos said that Christopher had to be taken care of and asked Jose if he was down to do it. Jose said he was down. Chris's mother Karen testified that around 10:38 that night, Christopher woke her up and told her that he and Daniel were going next door. Karen then gave Christopher and Daniel a hug. Daniel then pulled her closer and said, "Everything's gonna be okay." Christopher and Daniel then head to Raul's garage. When Christopher entered, Jonathan struck him from behind with the butt of a shotgun. Christopher stumbled and said, "What the fuck?" The others then said, "Fuck a snitch." At that moment, Christopher denied snitching. Fast forward to 11:30 p.m. that night, Christopher's body was discovered wrapped in a blanket in a street near Grace Avenue that was located in Carson. He had been stabbed more than 70 times, including wounds to his neck, back, and abdomen. He also had 5 blunt force injuries to his head. Daniel Aguilar was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without parole. On October 5th, 2018, Shell Green's killer Jonathan Fajardo was murdered by a homemade weapon while in the yard at San Quentin Prison. He was pronounced dead about 40 minutes later. Another death row inmate, Luis Rodriguez, has been identified as the suspect in the Fajardo slaying. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Canoga Park, Alabama began as a social club for Latino farm workers in the 1930s. Over time, it morphed into a car club, and by the 1970s, with drugs and guns flooding the community, it became a full-fledged street gang. Based in Canoga Park, their turf spans nearly 5 square miles, from Roscoe to Vanoan, between Topanga Canyon and Winnetka. CPA is one of the most isolated yet dominant gangs in LA County. Their stronghold? Lanark Park, headquarters for their drug ops and gang meetings. With 400 to 500 members, including 50 to 100 hardcore hitters, CPA is known for narcotics, robbery, and armed assaults. In 2006, CPA unleashed a hate-fueled campaign targeting black residents. 12 shootings in 6 months, most racially motivated. Graffiti marked with NK, N-word killer, became common. Victims included college football hopeful Nixon Gills, left blind after a drive-by, and others murdered or assaulted in broad daylight. In 2002, LA City filed a gang injunction. CPA was labeled a public nuisance. In 2007, they made LA's 10 worst gangs list, primarily due to their volume of hate crimes. Despite arrests and injunctions, they remain a major threat. From brutal drive-bys to racial assaults, CPA's violence has left a deep scar. Cases like the murder of William from the Bequima TDS gang at a Granada Hills party, or the 2010 high-speed shootout that left one gang member dead and others convicted, show how far CPA will go to enforce its rule. Canoga Park, Alabama isn't just a gang. It's a multi-decade force of racial violence, street crime, and community fear. Subscribe for more deep dives into LA's most dangerous sets.
Now that's the check this out.
The trash behind the bowling alley, regular night, no argument.
Now this right here is the valley. This is the Canoga Park, and this is in the San Fernando Valley. How you're going to see how they committed hate crimes against blacks. Now I went to East LA. I showed you the hate crimes in East LA with the fire bombings. Then I went to Northeast LA with the Avenues gang. Then I went to the harbor area with the 204th Street gang. Now, this right here is the San Fernando Valley. So these are different Mexican gangs who are committing hate crimes against random black civilians just for living in predominant Mexican communities. Check it out. Make sure that you guys bless the like button.
No warning, and then boom, one shot. Just like that, a man who served his country was face down in the parking lot, gone before the paramedics could even show up. The crazy part is that it wasn't even the first time. It wasn't random either. To understand what really happened on that cold December night, you have to go back to a time when a crew that started as a car club ended up on a mission that had nothing to do with cars. The story starts way before the bullets and graffiti, back when Canoga Park was still known as Owens Mouth, a quiet farming town tucked in the southwest corner.
Now, this is the San Fernando Valley, located in Los Angeles County. I'm showing you different Mexican gangs who have committed hate crimes against blacks. I showed you the Avenues gang. They hate black people. I showed you the Hazard gang, the 204th Street gang, the Hawaiian Gardens gang, now the Canoga Park gang in the San Fernando Valley. And there's many more Mexican gangs in Los Angeles County who behave like white supremacists with anti-black racism.
Along with that came the riot. We're just trying to survive because life on that end of the valley wasn't sweet. Work was backbreaking, racism was open, and cops didn't always show up when you called. So a group of young Mexican-American men came together, not to cause trouble, but to look out for one another. They called themselves a social club. It wasn't deep, just a way to stick together in a town that didn't really want them. But time changes everything. By the mid-50s, Canoga Park wasn't just farmland anymore. Aerospace jobs moved in, so did the 101 freeway, and the area slowly morphed into LA suburbia. Along with that came the rise of car culture. That little social club turned into a car club with lowriders, souped-up Chevys, weekend cruises down Sherman Way. Nothing criminal, at least not yet. Then the mid-70s hit and heroin started creeping through the valley. Then came coke, then meth, and becoming the hunters. Canoga Park sits on the west end of the San Fernando Valley, boxed in by money on three sides: Woodland Hills to the south, Chatsworth up north, and West Hills on the edge. Drive 10 minutes in the right direction and you'll pass country clubs, gated homes, and kids walking with iPads. But tucked between those zip codes is a stretch of apartment blocks, liquor stores, and chain-link fences. That's where CPA called home. CPA didn't just exist in Canoga Park, they claimed it. In fact, their turf stretched roughly 4 to 5 square miles, bounded by Roscoe Boulevard, Vinoan, Topanga Canyon, and Winnetka Avenue. Inside that square, there are old apartment buildings packed tight, graffiti that never stayed clean, and families trying to make rent on service jobs and night shifts. It was the kind of neighborhood where the same couch could sit on the curb for 3 weeks and no one would move it. Not because nobody cared, but because nobody wanted to get caught. At the heart of it all sat Lanark Park. To most of the city, it was just another public rec center, basketball court, playground, picnic tables. But on the block, Lanark was CPA's HQ. That was the meetup spot and
the Mexicans do not like black people in the San Fernando Valley and the Canoga Park gang territory. It was a black football player from Florida who went to college in California. These Mexicans shot him up and he was blind after the attack, and he was he had a bright future, man. He was a great football player, man. A lot of, the NFL was looking at him. Scouts was looking at him. He was a college football player. He had family in Canoga Park in the Valley. The SA shot him up. He was blind after the attack, and he couldn't play football no more because racist Mexicans shot him for being black. He wasn't a gangbanger. He wasn't causing problems. He got shot for being black in a predominant Mexican community.
Lanark Park. To most of the city, it was just another public rec center, basketball court, playground, picnic tables. But on the block, Lanark was CPA's HQ. That was the meetup spot and the place where business got handled. Whether that meant baggies, conversations, or keeping an eye on who's coming in and who's trying to slide through unnoticed. By the mid-'80s, CPA was deep to the point that LAPD reports estimated around 500 members, with maybe 100 of them really active. And it wasn't all just young heads. Some members had uncles, cousins, even dads who'd repped the name years before. In certain families, CPA wasn't just a gang, it was a legacy. But here's where things get complicated. Even with all that history, CPA wasn't always on some racial hate stuff. Back in the day, it was more about turf, pride, and survival. The lines were drawn by streets and cliques. Dudes were pushing serious weight, meth, crack, sometimes even coke, while also racking up charges for auto theft, armed robbery, and burglary. Their territory wasn't just turf, it was an open-air enterprise. Glen Corner, a strip mall near Glen and DeSoto, quietly became a well-known spot for dope transactions. To the casual eye, it looked like your everyday rundown shopping center. But to locals and law enforcement, it was a base of operation where hand-to-hand deals happened in daylight. CPA also had a thing for boosting cars. They were known for swiping Hondas and Toyotas, stripping them fast, and either selling parts or flipping the whole ride. In one case, they even managed to jack an off-duty LAPD officer's personal car from a residential block in Reseda. That hit was when the department rendered us to life for first-degree murder and attempted murder. So you had and another man injured, just a couple miles out. Shootouts popped off from time to time, but the targets were usually affiliated. One example, on August 11th, 2004, a drive-by sparked by territorial tensions left Jose Carlos dead and another man injured. Witnesses later identified Joel Castaneda stacked against 10 other barrios. Their situation was a little different, more isolated. Wasn't the only hit that happened over that line. According to court records, CPA cars were seen rolling past Reseda Park more than once, flashing signs.
That's hold on. My bad, right? My bad. My bad. I wasn't trying to do that. My fault. Now I want to show you, the racism.
Neighborhood felt the shift before the rest of the city even knew what was coming. By 2006, CPA's violence had taken on a different tone. It wasn't just about corners or rival crews anymore. It started to look like a campaign, a racial one. And this shift didn't happen in the shadows. People on the block saw it, officers noted it, and the graffiti started spelling it out before the bullets even flew. CPA members began tagging walls with NK, a code that stood for N-word killer. Some spots in the valley even carried tags that read 187 on all N-words. These weren't warnings aimed at rival sets. These were messages to everyday black folks who lived in or passed through CPA-controlled territory. It wasn't subtle, and it definitely wasn't about self-defense. Some law enforcement sources believe the shift may have been influenced by orders from inside prison. Allegedly, the Mexican mafia, known as La M, had been pushing for Latino gangs in Southern California to drive out black residents from certain neighborhoods. Whether CPA received direct instruction or not, what happened in Canoga Park during that time matched the same patterns seen in Highland Park, Azusa, and parts of South LA. Black residents were being pushed out through intimidation, physical assaults, and eventually fatal shootings. And it escalated so fast that between July 2006 and early 2007, there were at least a dozen documented shootings in Canoga Park where black civilians were targeted. In 9 of those 12 incidents, racial slurs were shouted before the trigger was pulled. The victims weren't gang members, weren't slanging dope, and weren't involved in any street business. Most of them were simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and in CPA's eyes, the wrong color. At this point, fear began to spread, not just among black families, but across the broader community. Schools near Lanark Park began adjusting evening programs, and neighbors who used to let their kids ride bikes after dinner started keeping them indoors. People began asking, if this wasn't gang warfare anymore, what exactly was it? It didn't take long for the violence to move from whispers and warnings to citywide concern. By the fall of 2006, LAPD started noticing a clear pattern. CPA was aggressively targeting black individuals, often without any provocation, and the attacks weren't isolated. On August 26, 2006, Nixon Gills, a 19-year-old running back who had just moved from Florida, was shot in the neck, shoulder, and eye while standing outside his Canoga Park apartment. He had just played in a preseason scrimmage for Pierce College and had stepped outside to call his mother and tell her about how well it went. A shotgun blast ended that call and nearly ended his life. Nixon survived, but he lost vision in his left eye, underwent 4 surgeries, and never played football again. The shooting wasn't linked to any beef or personal dispute. Nixon wasn't affiliated with any gang. According to both Nixon and police investigators, he was simply a young black man living in a neighborhood CPA now viewed as theirs alone. By October, reports of racial slurs being spray painted on garages and alley walls doubled. Some of them had threats attached like "move out" or "get smoked." Other residents came forward to report being followed or harassed. One mother said her 14-year-old son was nearly jumped at a corner store just for walking home with a backpack. The community had seen gang activity before, but this wasn't that. This was methodical, targeted, and clearly racial. And by early 2007, even LAPD officially classified some of the CPA shootings as hate crimes. What made
this Mexican gang committed so many hate crimes against blacks, the Los Angeles Police Department labeled them the hate gang. They earned that title of the hate gang for all the racially motivated attacks they committed against blacks. CPA is known as a hate gang. There's no black gangs in these areas. You got a few black people who lived in this community, and these Mexican gang members would attack them just for being black.
Things worse was that many of the victims were outsiders, students, workers, or new transplants with no clue about.
Listen, a lot of these black people that was attacked were just college students, black people who lived in this area. These people were not street people. They were not gang members. Racially motivated attacks committed by Mexicans because Mexicans don't like black people being in their communities. This shows you the Ku Klux Klan behavior that comes from Mexican Serrano Southsiders.
Harassed. Reports of racial slurs being spray painted on garages and alley walls doubled. Some of them had threats attached like "move out" or "get smoked." Other residents came forward to report being followed or harassed. One mother said her 14-year-old son was nearly jumped at a corner store just for walking home with a backpack. The community had seen gang activity before, but this wasn't that. This was methodical, targeted, and clearly racial. And by early 2007, even LAPD officially classified some of the CPA shootings as hate crimes. What made things worse was that many of the victims were outsiders, students, workers, or new transplants with no clue about the tension. They walked into it blind, unaware that the rules in Canoga Park had shifted. It wasn't just about not repping colors. Now it was about being black. Period. At this point, the city began to take notice, and LAPD's Rampart Division assigned a task force to specifically track hate-related gang violence in the valley. But for black families already living near Lanark Park, that shift came a little too late. The damage was already being done, and CPA wasn't slowing down. On the evening of August 26, 2006, 19-year-old Nixon Gills stepped outside his apartment complex in Canoga Park to make a phone call. He had just finished football practice with his new college team, Pierce College, and wanted to tell his mom back in Florida how it went. It was a regular moment for any student athlete, one of those quiet in-between scenes that don't usually make the news, but this one would. As Nixon stood outside, 2 young Latino males approached, one of them carrying a sawed-off shotgun. There was no conversation, no warning, and no demand for money. According to witnesses, and later confirmed in court, they said something under their breath, something that sounded like a slur, and then fired. The shotgun blast tore through Nixon's face and shoulder. He collapsed on the pavement, bleeding from his eye socket and struggling to breathe. Neighbors called 911, and LAPD officers arrived within minutes. Nixon was rushed into emergency surgery and somehow survived, but his left eye was gone. The pellets had caused permanent nerve damage to his face, and his football career ended right there on the asphalt. Police didn't find drugs, weapons, or any gang links on Nixon. He wasn't a local, didn't grow up in the area, and didn't know CPA by name. All he knew was that he moved into an affordable apartment complex in a neighborhood that looked decent on the surface. Later investigations would link the shooting directly to Canoga Park, Alabama. It wasn't mistaken identity and not even gang retaliation. It was, plain and simple, a race-based attack. And Nixon's case wasn't the only one, but it was part of a wave. What made his story stand out, though, was how visible it became. News outlets picked it up. The image of a young black athlete, clean-cut, college-bound, and nearly killed while calling his mother, hit a nerve across the city. But for CPA, this wasn't the climax. It was just the beginning of a darker chapter. Just a few weeks after Nixon's shooting, another incident pushed CPA further into the spotlight. And this time, the whole thing was caught on tape. On the afternoon of June 15, 2007, two black teenage boys were helping their aunt move out of a house on Lanark Street. Nothing shady, no gang signs, no shouting, just regular family business on a weekday afternoon. According to court documents, the teens were loading boxes into a truck when a group of Latino males pulled up in a car and got out. Within seconds, fists started flying. One of the boys was hit in the face and thrown to the ground, while the other was stomped and kicked repeatedly. The attackers shouted racial slurs throughout the assault, words like monkey and go back to Africa. The entire attack was captured by a nearby surveillance camera, and the footage, once reviewed by LAPD, left no room for spin. There was no back and forth, no escalation, and the teens didn't provoke anything. It was clear that the violence was immediate and one-sided. Investigators quickly identified two suspects, 23-year-old Johnny Aguilar and 20-year-old Francisco Vasquez, both known CPA affiliates with prior arrests. The footage became a key piece of evidence in court, and both Aguilar and Vasquez were charged with felony assault and hate crime enhancements. During the trial, prosecutors emphasized that the attack was racially motivated and entirely unprovoked. Witnesses from the neighborhood backed that up, stating that CPA had been checking black residents more aggressively over the past year, and that intimidation was now a regular thing. In August 2008, both men were convicted. Aguilar received a 10-year sentence, while Vasquez got 7. Though they weren't the highest-ranking members of CPA, the case sent a message that the city was finally paying attention. Still, convictions didn't slow the pattern. If anything, the violence started getting more surgical, less beatdowns, more bullets. And by the end of the year, CPA would carry out the killing that would make headlines across the entire state. It wasn't a teenager this time, or a new resident, or a student. It was a Navy veteran, a father of 5, and someone whose only mistake was showing up to work. On the night of December 22nd, 2008, James Champ was doing something he'd done countless times before, taking out the trash behind Canoga Park Bowl where he worked as a cook. It was just past 10 p.m. The night was quiet and most of the staff had already gone home. James stepped into the back lot with a plastic bag.
What you guys don't understand is these are civilians. So I'm going to show you South Central areas where there were black people hitting back. That's like when you go to the South, right? You got black people getting attacked in sundown towns. I could easily say, well, when those black people got shot up at that Dollar General in Jacksonville, Florida in 2023, how come the blacks in Florida didn't hit back? How come they didn't hit back? You got sundown towns all over the South where rednecks don't like black people coming to their communities. I can do stories right now about black people being attacked in the South, and I can say, how come the blacks ain't hitting back? Maybe they did, but maybe you just don't hear about it. There's no black gangs in this area. These are just black civilians. There's no black gangs in these areas. So Mexicans feel very comfortable attacking blacks in areas where there's no black gangs. This is a prime example. I'm going to show you a video after this where there's death, retaliation, and get back.
In hand, headed toward the dumpster, unaware that a car had just rolled into the alley behind him. According to witness accounts and court records, a small sedan slowed behind the bowling alley. Inside were 4 members of Canoga Park, Alabama, Richard Bordalon, Francisco Vasquez, Juan Carlos Pantoja, and Anthony Gonzalez. They weren't looking for a rival. They weren't there to settle a score. When they spotted James, alone, black, unarmed, they made a decision. Bordalon, sitting in the passenger seat, rolled down the window and fired once with a shotgun. The blast hit James in the chest, and he collapsed instantly. Security footage showed the car speeding off moments later, and employees found James slumped behind the building and
Show me a video of blacks in show me a video of blacks in Florida going to war with white supremacists. I'm gonna show you some videos where blacks in South Central went to war with Mexicans. Right after this, I'm just showing you what Mexicans do in their communities that's predominant Latino and there's no blacks. I'm just showing you the hate. Now I'm gonna show you blacks retaliating or getting busy with Mexican gangs in Los Angeles. When you go to the valley or if you go to these areas where there's no black people, Mexicans feel bold. They love to commit these hate crimes because there's no blacks in these areas.
911. Paramedics arrived, but it was too late as he was pronounced dead at the scene. James Champ was a 48-year-old Navy veteran, a father of 5 who had served his country, kept his head down, and worked 2 jobs to support his kids. According to co-workers, he never got involved in street stuff, didn't drink, and didn't hang out. He clocked in, did his shift, and went home. His murder shook the community, not just because of how senseless it was, but because it confirmed something a lot of folks had feared. CPA wasn't just threatening anymore, they were executing. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong because nothing was stolen and no words were exchanged. It was a straight up racial hit, and for the LAPD, this was the moment that forced them to act differently. By the time James Champ was laid to rest, LAPD had already connected the dots. His killing was the final link in a series of shootings and assaults that painted a clear picture. Canoga Park, Alabama was no longer just a street gang. They were operating more like a paramilitary crew on a racial purge. But if the signs were there, the official response had taken too long. The LAPD's gang unit had been monitoring CPA since the late 90s. Back in 2002, they had issued a gang injunction against the group, creating a 4.65-mile restricted zone and banning CPA members from gathering in public within those boundaries. That move helped reduce overt gang activity for a while, but it didn't stop the violence. CPA just moved quieter, more calculated. Following Champ's murder, detectives from the West Valley Division worked with the city attorney's office to pursue a broader crackdown. In 2010, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office brought a multi-defendant indictment against key CPA members under charges that included hate crimes, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Richard Psycho Bordelon, the shooter in the Champ case, was tried separately. Prosecutors laid out surveillance footage, witness testimony, and forensic evidence. The racial motive was clear. Bordelon was convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances for committing a hate crime. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Francisco Vasquez, Anthony Gonzalez, and Juan Carlos Pantoja were also convicted in connection to the crime. Each received decades-long sentences under various charges, including conspiracy and gang enhancements. By then, CPA's leadership was fractured, and dozens of members had already been swept up in prior cases. And while they never vanished completely, their ability to operate openly was finally cut down. The murder of James Champ didn't just mark the end of an era for CPA, it forced the city to confront the racial dimension of gang violence in LA, something it had long tried to ignore. But for the families affected, those convictions didn't bring peace because the trauma didn't stop just because the shooters were behind bars. By 2010, LAPD had already built a pattern of racially motivated violence around Canoga Park, Alabama. But the case that sealed it even further came from a failed shooting that spun into chaos and ended with one of the gang's own lying dead in the street. On February 21st, 2010, 2 black brothers were driving through Reseda, a neighborhood just east of Canoga Park. It was around 10 p.m. and they had just picked up food and were headed home. That's when a Toyota sedan began following them aggressively. Inside were 4 CPA members: Francisco Vasquez, Anthony Gonzalez, Richard Bordelon, and Michael Cardenas. According to LAPD reports, Vasquez was in the passenger seat and fired a shotgun at the brothers' vehicle. Miraculously, the gun jammed and not a single shot went off. The brothers, realizing what was happening, immediately floored it. A high-speed chase followed through city streets, topping speeds of nearly 100 miles per hour. Luckily, the chase did not last long. As the Toyota sped through a red light at Tampa Avenue and Roscoe Boulevard, it collided violently with another vehicle. The impact sent the CPA car spinning into a pole, and Michael Cardenas, who was sitting in the back seat, was killed instantly, while others sustained injuries but survived. When officers arrived, they found the shotgun used in the attempted hit, along with gang paraphernalia and communications that linked the group to CPA. The surviving suspects were arrested on the spot, and later prosecutors revealed that the 4 men had gone out that night with a plan to target random black civilians. The motive was consistent with CPA's ongoing hate campaign, and their prior involvement in the Champ and Gilles cases gave even more weight to the charges. In the end, Gonzalez and Vasquez received life sentences. The driver, Pantoja, who had survived previous charges, was also convicted and sentenced to over 65 years in prison. For law enforcement, this case showed the recklessness of CPA's actions. For the community, it showed that even when their plans failed, people still died. Once the trials were over and the media coverage faded, the real work began for the community that had lived in the shadow of CPA for years. Healing doesn't come easy when fear has been part of your daily routine.
Shout out to this brother, man. He said, super chat, man. He said, I'm African, straight out of Canada. Take this donation to support your channel. Please spread the word worldwide. BAFBA, always welcome in Africa. Shout out to my African brothers, man. Shout out to Tyrell for the 10 on the Cash App. Shout out to Joseph R for the 5 on the Cash App. Hey, man, shout out to everybody that's been supporting the channel.
When you've had to explain to your kids why they can't ride their bikes past a certain corner, or why a neighbor's garage still has slurs spray painted across it, even after 3 attempts to paint it over. Many black families who could afford to leave Canoga Park did just that. For those who stayed, life was never quite the same. Even after major convictions and the breakdown of CPA's upper ranks, the stigma lingered. Some residents said they still avoid Atlantic Park even during daylight hours. Others kept their heads down and hoped the new generation wouldn't pick up where the last one left off. But there were others that did something more than staying quiet. Local churches, community centers, and activists stepped up in the months following James Champ's murder. Vigils were held not only...
So when Mexicans try to tell you it's just gangbanging, it's nonsense. People like Dubs will say it ain't racism, it's gangbanging. For one, Dubs is not from Los Angeles. Dubs is speaking out the side of his a-hole. He don't know what he's talking about. If you from Los Angeles or Los Angeles County, you know about these racially motivated attacks that had nothing to do with gangbanging whatsoever. It didn't have nothing to do with money. It didn't have nothing to do with gangbanging. These were racially motivated attacks. Mexicans attacking random black civilians in predominant Mexican communities.
For him, but for all the victims of CPA's hate-fueled violence. His family in particular pushed for public awareness about racially motivated gang crimes, calling out both the gang and the slow-footed response from authorities. Latino residents in Canoga Park also began speaking out, and many were quick to clarify that CPA did not represent the community at large. Some even testified in court, while others joined neighborhood councils and parent groups to advocate for unity and safety. Over time, the neighborhood changed with more surveillance.
All right, so now you understand what happened, man. I wanted to show you that. Now, I'm going to show you this.
They never planned for Baldwin Village to become a battlefield. Los Angeles is a city built on borders, street names, school districts, gang lines. And in the southwest pocket...
That's the jungles right there, man. It was in training day, man. Black P Stones, man, run this area right here. And the Mexicans tried to move in. The 18th Streets tried to move in the jungles, and the jungles wasn't having it. So... gunplay ensued, and the Bloods ran the Mexicans out of the jungles. They're like, no, you can't start a gang over here. We can't go to MacArthur Park or Pico Union and start a Black Hood, so we're not going to let you start an 18th Street clique over here in the jungles. Shout out to the Black P Stones for standing on business. This right here is the Black P Stones territory in the jungles, right behind the Crenshaw Mall, Baldwin Hills, Baldwin Village, the jungles. So
South Central, between La Brea and Crenshaw, lies a cluster of low-rise apartments surrounding Baldwin Village to become a battle. Los Angeles is a city built on borders, street names, school districts, gang lines. And in the southwest pocket of South Central, between La Brea and Crenshaw, lies a cluster of low-rise apartments surrounded by palm trees and quiet tension. It's called Baldwin Village, but to those who really know, it's the jungles. The Black Pea Stones trace their origins back to Chicago in the late 1950s, founded by a man named Jeff Fort, but it wasn't until the late 1960s that their presence took root in Los Angeles, when a young member named T. Rogers relocated to Baldwin Village and established what would become the stone named Jeff Fort. But it wasn't until the late 1960s that their presence took root in Los Angeles, when a young member
T. Rogers from Chicago brought the Black Pea Stones to LA in the 1960s. The Biddy Stones was the first Black Pea Stones chapter. The Jungles came after the Biddy Stones. A lot of people think that the Jungles was out before the Biddy Stones. No, the Biddy Stones and Adams and the West Adams Mid-City District was already up and running before the Jungles came out. Then eventually the Black Pea Stones, T. Rogers started another chapter in the Jungles, but T. Rogers is the one who T. Rogers brought the Black Pea Stones to Los Angeles from Chicago. Now, in Chicago, the Black Pea Stones are under the People Nation, but in Los Angeles, California, you're going to be Blood and Crips. So the Black Pea Stones in Los Angeles became Bloods. But that's a whole nother story. I'll get into that later. Check the game. But this is the OG homie T. Rogers, Black Pea Stones, homie.
Named T. Rogers relocated to Baldwin Village and established what would become the Stones' most infamous West Coast chapter, the Jungles. Baldwin Village got its nickname from its dense greenery, palm trees, and tropical plants that made the neighborhood look like an urban jungle. But over time, the name took on a darker meaning, one tied to crack, murder, and red rags. Their turf and near the west side of LA sits in by Exposition at its north, Jim Gilliam Park on the south, La Brea to the west, and Crenshaw to the east. A smaller offshoot, known as the Biddy, sits further north in the Arlington Heights area near Mid-City. 18th Street, on the other hand, is one of the largest and most deeply rooted Hispanic gangs in Los Angeles. Founded in the 1960s near 18th and Union, they've grown into an estimated 15,000 member powerhouse, with cliques scattered across the county and even internationally. But the four barrios that matter most sit just west of downtown LA, especially near West Adams. While 18th Street has plenty of enemies, of their most violent and long...
Let's set the record straight. In the West Adams district, you got the Alsace clique. That's an 18th Street gang. Then you have the Smiley Drives. And then just north of the 10 freeway, you got another 18th Street clique in the Marvin Gangster Crip Hood. Right down the street, you got another 18th Street clique in the Schoolyard Crip Hood. So those are 4 18th Street cliques right there. And then you have the Rancho Parks is over there by the Harlems. The Rancho Park was in the Jungles. The Ursula Block Locos was in the Jungles. So these are 6 18th Street cliques that's on the west side of Los Angeles, the West Adams Mid-City District. I know what I'm talking about. I'm from the west side of Los Angeles, so this is firsthand information. I don't need no YouTube video to prove anything. I know what I'm talking about. I'm showing you guys these videos to bring you receipts, but I know this to be a fact. Why? Because I'm from the west side of Los Angeles. I grew up in this community. Affiliated, gang-related, King Supreme.
Standing rivalries has been with the Bloods, and no feud has been more bloody than their war with the Black Pea Stones. The tension wasn't always explosive. At first, it was side eyes at the liquor store, bumped shoulders outside the apartments, or crossed out tags retagged again. These early gestures, small acts of disrespect, carried weight in gang culture. Each crossed out 18 or BPS was like a slap in the face, and both sides were keeping score. By 1998, things had turned physical. Fights broke out in alleys, gunshots echoed near the Dons, and several unsolved shootings were whispered about on both sides. The LAPD knew something was brewing, but couldn't pin down who started it. The Stones suspected 18th Street was pushing deeper into their turf. 18th Street accused Stones of wilding out beyond their block. Then came the gang injunctions, specifically designed to shut down movement in Baldwin Village. But it didn't work the way the city hoped. Instead of slowing things down, it made the territory even more valuable. Each gang knew if the city cared enough to draw a line around Baldwin Village, it must be worth fighting over, and fight they did. The year 2004 marked the first clear, documented bloodshed in the conflict between 18th Street and the Black P Stones inside.
That's where he's wrong. 2004 was not the first death between the Black P Stones and 18th Street. This guy right here doesn't know what he's talking about, but hey, man, I respect the video. The beef started in the 90s when the 18th Streets tried to move in the jungles in the mid-90s. Black P Stone wasn't having it. They told the 18th Street, you cannot start a clique over here. You can't sell dope in our community. The 18th Streets decided that they was going to do it anyway. Gunplay ensued, and the Black P Stones ran the 18th Streets out of the jungles, evicted them from the black community, and rightfully so. But he's wrong. An OG from Black P Stone at the swap meet on Washington and 10th Ave, right before you get to Crenshaw. This happened like in 1996, 97. OG from Black P Stone lost his life on Washington right before you get to Crenshaw. But the beef started in the jungles. So when this dude said, oh, man, the first bloodshed happened in 2004, that is false. That is false information. But this guy is not from Los Angeles. He's just making videos, doing the best that he can. I'm here to tell you that the beef started in the 90s, not the 2000s.
South Los Angeles. This was the year things officially turned deadly. On the night of January 31st, 2004, a group of 12 friends, ages ranging from their late teens to early 20s, pulled up to a house party near Arlington Avenue and Adams Boulevard, deep in Black P Stone territory. They arrived in 3 separate cars, parking along the north side of Adams Boulevard under the glow of dim streetlights. 2 women from the group, Anjanette and Carla, walked ahead to the party gate and asked a security guard if they could come in. The guard told them the group was welcome, but when the girls went back to tell their friends, they had no idea what they were walking back into. As the group started toward the pedestrian gate, a man known on the streets as Leon, a Black P Stone affiliate, stepped out of the shadows and confronted them. "Hey, what y'all doing over here?" he asked, hand already near his waistband. Before anyone could answer, Leon pulled a gun and threatened to open fire. "Y'all need to get up out of here," he barked, then turned to one of the men saying, "And you, why you looking at?" Insisting they didn't want trouble, but as they turned to leave, Leon wasn't done. He ran up on Miguel, pressed the gun into his body, and demanded, "What you got on you?" Miguel said he didn't have any money. Leon told him to take off his Boston Celtics jersey, then suddenly pivoted toward Jose's car and opened fire. Witnesses later said they heard between 10 and 30 shots. When the gunfire stopped, Leon jumped into a silver Ford Explorer with another man later identified as Frank, and they sped away. The victims tried to flee in their cars, but as they drove several blocks, Jose began to fade from blood loss and pulled over. In the back seat, Jason, Jose's brother, was dead. In the front, his sister Shama had also been killed instantly. Another passenger, Walter, had been shot through the hand. Jose himself had been hit 6 times, multiple bullets to his legs, and one that shattered his jaw. Police recovered over 30 shell casings at the scene. Both Leon and Frank, members of the Black P Stones, were arrested, convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and shooting into an occupied vehicle. Each received 2 consecutive life sentences. It was the first major conviction tying the Stones to a double homicide tied to gang tension in Baldwin Village, and for the city, it was a brutal sign of what was coming. By the end of 2004, everyone in South LA knew Baldwin Village was no longer just the jungles. It was a war zone. On the afternoon of September 24, 2006, Cesar Avila was sitting in his car with his wife and 2 daughters. When Cesar stepped out of the car, a silver 4-door vehicle pulled up right beside him. A person in the front passenger seat shouted out, "Fuck 18." The passenger shouted out, "Black P Stones," then pulled out a gun and shot Cesar in the chest and the hand. The passenger then hopped out and fired a 3rd shot into the car, striking and killing Cesar's 3-year-old daughter, Jonathan Durrell. Banks, a member of BPS, was eventually convicted of the killing of Cesar's 3-year-old daughter. On March 19, 2007, a young man named Carlos was simply trying to get home. As he entered his apartment complex, he was approached by 3 young men, all members of the Black P Stones. Leading the group was Kevin, accompanied by 2 associates. One of them stepped forward and asked Carlos, "Where you from?" followed by the more ominous, "You know where you at, right?" Carlos tried to stay calm. He pleaded with them, insisting he wasn't affiliated with any gang, but it didn't matter. The three P-Stones were convinced Carlos was part of 18th Street. They surrounded him, checking his pockets for cash, taking his car keys, and then, without warning, started punching on him. Carlos broke free and ran, but as he took off, Kevin pulled out a handgun and opened fire, striking Carlos in the foot. The shooting happened right outside his own complex. Another example of how this war didn't just claim gang members, it endangered everyone. Later, Kevin from the Black P-Stones pleaded no contest to second-degree robbery and admitted to firing the weapon during the attack. He was sentenced to 22 years in state prison. On September 20th, 2007, the war spilled directly into the heart of 18th Street territory. That evening, two men, Erwin and Mario, were driving a Ford Explorer down West Haven Street, a stretch known to be deep inside 18th Street's zone. As they approached Redondo Boulevard, two vehicles suddenly blocked the road ahead, cutting off any escape. Before they could react, three black males jumped out and opened fire. Erwin ducked his head and threw the Explorer in reverse, trying to escape the ambush. Bullets tore through the vehicle, 12 shots in total. As Erwin tried to maneuver away, one round grazed his forehead, and he slammed into multiple parked cars while backing up. Mario, seated beside him, was hit in the forearm and stomach. That same day, just hours earlier around noon, Victor Campos, an 18th Street member, was standing outside his apartment building on Hauser Boulevard and Carlin Street. A silver Impala rolled up, and the passenger shouted, "Fuck 18th Street," before opening fire. Victor was hit in the upper back near the shoulder, reportedly by either a .45 or a .22 caliber handgun. Then, just 5 days later, on the corner of West Haven and Redondo once again, this war zone lit up with gunfire around 1:46 p.m. Witnesses said a car carrying two black males crashed into another vehicle at the intersection. After the collision, they jumped out and started firing. The driver of the second car, an 18th Street member, returned fire. The back and forth that day left the block in chaos. James Fletcher and Jerry Burke, both confirmed Black P-Stones members, were later arrested and convicted for the series of shootings inside 18th Street's neighborhood. Prosecutors connected the three incidents as part of a calculated string of attacks targeting 18th Street soldiers directly in their stronghold. The message was loud: nowhere was safe. It was the morning of New Year's Eve. Dwight, known on the streets as Pee-wee from the Rolling 20 Bloods, asked his girlfriend for a ride to the swap meet. He needed a long-sleeve shirt to
Now, I know Pee-wee, man. I know Pee-wee personally, right? He's short, like he's a short cat, but he was with the business. You know what I mean? Whenever he ran into enemies, he was ready to take care of business. So I know Dwight. He ran into the 18th Streets at the SWAT meet on 10th Avenue in Washington, right before you get to Crenshaw. He saw the 18th Streets up there. He asked them where they was from. They said 18th Street. He started busting on them. They started running. The 18th Street members snitched on Pee-wee and he got a license. So yes, they snitched. He bust on them inside of the Pee-wee bust on them inside of the SWAT meet on Washington. The SAs from 18th Street told, they went to court and pointed them out in the lineup. The homie ended up getting a life sentence behind them SAs snitching. This is a fact. This is a documented fact. This is not he say or she say.
Known on the streets as Pee-wee from the Rolling 20 Bloods, the message was loud: nowhere was safe. It was the morning of New Year's Eve. Dwight, known on the streets as Pee-wee from the Rolling 20 Bloods, asked his girlfriend for a ride to the swap meet. He needed a long-sleeve shirt to help cover up his gang tattoos. He planned to be in a rival gang's territory later that day. He also had a borrowed gun in his pocket. His own house had been shot up just a month earlier. As Dwight entered the swap meet, his girlfriend walked to a nearby beauty supply store. At the same time, Danny, a known 18th Street member, and his cousin Melvin were pulling up to the same location. Danny had 666 tattooed across the back of his head, a clear representation of his gang ties. As they approached the entrance, Dwight came around the corner and locked eyes with them. "Hey, hold up, where y'all from?" he called out. Danny answered, "I'm from 18th Street. Dwight fired back, literally, "Oh yeah? F-18, then immediately pulled out his gun and started shooting. Danny took off running toward the swap meet, and Dwight let off 2 shots. Melvin was hit twice in the leg and ducked behind a concrete planter for cover, but Dwight wasn't done. He kept shooting at Melvin, firing between 9 to 10 rounds in total before fleeing the scene with his girlfriend. Danny ran back to Melvin, who was bleeding on the ground. He tried to help get his cousin into the car to drive him to the hospital, but because Danny was on parole, he panicked when he heard sirens and left the scene. Later, both cousins identified Dwight and his girlfriend, Elena. Dwight from Rolling 20s was convicted of attempted murder and attempted voluntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 22 years plus 25 years to life. Jamil Shaw II, known as Jazz, was a rising star in Los Angeles.
Now, this dude right here was the Ricky from Boys in the Hood. He was the real Ricky from Boys in the Hood, man. He went to LA High. He was a running back. He was a star athlete. Colleges was looking at him. Scholarships were coming. He got gunned down by a Mexican gangbanger coming home one evening, right? Tragic situation, man. You know, rest in peace to the brother, right? But yeah, this right here, it happened on Washington and I believe, like, was it 6th Avenue, something like that? This right here happened in like 2007 and 2008. I remember when this happened. He was the Ricky of the hood. He got gunned down by a Mexican gangbanger who was an illegal alien. The Mexican dude from 18 that gunned him down was in the country illegally. He was he wasn't an anchor baby. He was an illegal alien. He was born in Mexico, but he crossed the border illegally and he became a gangbanger. And he unalived this black man who was a running back for Los Angeles High School. Keep in mind, I went to Los Angeles High myself back in the late 90s. I went to LA High back in the late 90s for sure. So I know. I'm from this community. I'm giving you firsthand information. I'm just showing these videos to give you proof of everything that happened. But listen. If I was to do this same video, I could have gave accurate information because the guy who's telling the story, he ain't from this community. He's just reporting stuff that he's seen on the internet and he made a video about it. I'm from this community, so I know exactly what was going on, bro.
Standout running back 20s was convicted of attempted murder and attempted voluntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 22 years plus 25 years to life. Jamil Shaw II, known as Jazz, was a rising star in Los Angeles. A standout running back at LA High School, Jazz was a 3-time MVP with a 4.2 GPA and scholarship offers from Stanford and Rutgers. On March 2nd, 2008, he had just finished a 10-week college football training program in Pasadena and stopped by the Beverly Center with friends before heading home. Jazz's father, Jamil Sr., told him to be home by 7. At 7:01 p.m., he called Jazz, who said, "We caught the wrong bus, but I'm safe. Be there in a minute." That same night, Pedro Espinosa, a recently released 18th Street gang member, was driving through the neighborhood with 2 associates. They spotted Jazz walking with a red Spider-Man backpack. They didn't know Jazz. They didn't care. They just saw a young black male in red. Pedro stopped at a friend's house nearby, but the friend wasn't home. As Pedro walked back toward his car, he spotted Jazz again.
So it happened on 5th Avenue in Washington, man. I grew up over there, man. I know what I'm talking about. I grew up on Adams. I grew up on Washington. I grew up on Crenshaw. So I can give you firsthand information about all this stuff that happened. You dig what I'm saying? Hit the like button. Make sure that you guys bless the like button. It ain't nothing.
Now just 3 houses away from home, Jazz was on the phone with his girlfriend Cristal when Pedro approached him and asked, "Where are you from?" Jazz didn't answer fast enough. Pedro pulled out his gun and fired. The first bullet hit Jazz in the stomach. As Jazz fell to the ground with his hands up, Pedro walked around and fired again. That bullet went through Jazz's hands and into his head. Pedro fled the scene with his crew. Jamil Sr. heard the gunshots from his living room. He ran outside and found his son dying in the street. He stayed by Jazz's side until paramedics arrived. Jazz was later pronounced dead. At first, rumors circulated online suggesting Jazz was affiliated with the Bloods based on some old MySpace photos. But LAPD investigations found no gang ties, no criminal history. Jazz's murder sparked national outrage. His story was compared to Ricky's in Boys in the Hood, a promising black youth gunned down by senseless gang violence. Pedro Espinosa from 18th Street was convicted and sentenced to death. On the evening of...
See, I went to Mount Vernon right there on Washington, right across the street from the SWAT meet. Yeah, homie, I went to Mount Vernon on Washington. I'm from this community, bro. The only thing is I don't want to go so deep into gang politics to where I incriminate somebody, but I'm from this community. I was around when all this stuff happened. I remember when the OG homie from Black P Stone got unalived at the SWAT meet by some 18th Streets, but the beef started in the jungles, and then eventually it spilled off into the Biddy. It spilled off into the 20s. This was the 90s. I'm talking about 1994, 95, 96, when the war cracked off with the 18th Streets. I know what I'm talking about. I'm really from the city. I'm really from the community. I'm giving you firsthand information, but there's only so much that I can talk about, because not only, listen, I don't want to incriminate myself, and I don't want to incriminate anybody else. So there's only so much that I could say. That's why I show you these videos of these people who are not from the community that are making content about it. But as further as me going into details, there's only so much I can say.
May 7th, 2009, members of 18th Street were having a party at Carlos's apartment, a known hangout called The Spot. Louisa, who was dating a member named Jimmy, had parked her black Jeep outside and passed out drunk inside the apartment. Daniel, another member who was on parole and wearing a state-issued GPS ankle monitor, took the keys from Luis's purse and convinced Carlos to ride with him. Daniel and Carlos headed west into Blood territory. At the intersection of 27th and Cimarron, Daniel ran a stop sign and nearly...
Yeah, man. Billy Herb got unalive at the SWAT meet. I believe it was like 95 and 96. 95, 96, 97. That's when Billy Herb lost his life at the Washington SWAT meet when the 18th Streets came up there bussing. You know, a few people got shot, but Billy Herb was the only one unalive. And then you got Dog from BPS that I believe it was on Washington too. This was like in 2003, 2004. But yeah, Billy Herb was the OG that lost his life at the SWAT meet. And this was like 95, 96. I was a teenager back then, but I remember when this happened. And this liquor store right here, this is right here like on Cimarron, right? Right before you get to Arlington on Adams. You see where I'm pointing this arrow right there? That's Adams Boulevard up there. This is Cimarron. And then as soon as you get to Arlington, that's the Black P Stone. This is the 20s hood right there. But as soon as you cross Arlington going west, then it becomes Black P Stone territory. You know, I used to be over here. My homeboy's grandmother lived right on this street, right here on Cimarron, right down the street. And that was the market right there. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about, homie.
With another car. The driver, Thomas, an unaffiliated civilian, swerved to avoid impact. Daniel stepped out of the Jeep and opened fire. Thomas was hit once in the side and once in the chest. He later died from his wounds. His only mistake, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Daniel and Carlos weren't done. Minutes later, cousins Trey and Rashid, both civilians, were walking near 27th and Arlington. The black Jeep sped toward them at nearly 80 miles per hour, then suddenly slowed down. Carlos leaned out and said, "Hey, what's up, blood?" Before they could react, shots rang out. Trey was grazed in the backside. Rashid watched a bullet fly past his face. Daniel and Carlos were later convicted of first-degree murder and multiple counts of attempted murder. Daniel received 90 years to life. Carlos got 80. Near the corner of 27th and 7th Avenue, an area known as the Biddy, a man named Casey was shot in the head by 2 Latino gunmen. He survived. Just over a week later on Spalding Avenue in 18th Street territory, James and Mauricio stood outside Mauricio's house. James had driven from South Bay to pick up his car. Mauricio noticed a white BMW drive past, followed closely by a gray Infiniti. The Infiniti made a U-turn, circled back, and stopped. A man jumped out with a gun. Mauricio warned, "He's got a gun." and tried to pull James into cover, but James froze. 2 shots fired, then the gun jammed. After a pause, 8 more shots. James was hit multiple times and died at the hospital. Detectives later connected the shooter to Casey, the BPS member who had been shot the week before. The gunman, Michael from Black P. Stones, was convicted of second-degree murder and attempted murder. He was sentenced to 80 years to life. While the violence has slowed, the tension between Black P. Stones and 18th Street still simmers. Social media keeps the disrespect alive, and the threat of retaliation.
So this is what I'm telling y'all about. This is these were cases, man. These are things that took place, and yeah, man, it's a terrible situation. But you know, this is exactly what happened. Bless the like button if you haven't already. The game is coming oh so heavy. King Supreme, support the damn game in a major way. We might as well listen. Make sure that you guys hit the like on the damn way. So listen, man, when I tell y'all about these issues, man, these are issues that's been going on for a long time. If my memory is correct, Mount Vernon was on 18. No. 18th Street is before you get to Washington. 18th Street is before you get to Washington. But Mount Vernon is on Washington, and it's like 8th Avenue, something like that. Right before you get to the SWAT meet, you got Mount Vernon on Washington, and then Crenshaw is a few blocks. You got Crenshaw down the street. So, yeah, man, I went to Mount Vernon. I went to LA High. I even went to Hollywood High. I went to a continuation school in West LA right by Hamilton. Right by Hamilton High, there's a continuation behind Hamilton. I went to that continuation because keep in mind, I got kicked out of LA High. I got kicked out of LA High. Then after LA High, I went to Hollywood High. Stayed at Hollywood High for a minute. Then I went to a continuation school by Hamilton. Then after going to the continuation school by Hamilton, I went to the continuation school right next door to Mount Vernon on Washington, which is in the neighborhood, right? So instead of going to West LA to Hamilton to a continuation school, I started going to the continuation school right next door to Mount Vernon on Washington Boulevard. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that you guys hit the like button. It ain't nothing. It's your player partner, King Supreme. Make sure that you support the damn game in a major way. I'm here to give you knowledge, wisdom, and information. One of the only guys from Los Angeles. Shout out to Bobby A. Shout out to the Viral Way podcast. We're the only brothers that's really breaking this stuff down. The rest of these LA Black podcasters, they talk about black on black violence, but they never talk about the issues with black and brown. Why? Because they're too afraid to offend their Mexican subscribers, so they really don't say nothing about the black and brown issues, but they'll talk about Crip and Blood, black on black violence all damn day on their podcast. That's what they do. Yeah, you got a gang in San Bernardino called Mount Vernon, right? You do. I don't know if it's Mount Vernon or something, but you got the West Side Verdugos in San Bernardino, and you have the I don't know if it's called Mount Vernon or something like that, but I went to San Bernardino County Jail. I did a county lid in San Bernardino for a gun charge back in the 2000s. So not only am I familiar with the Los Angeles culture, I'm also familiar with the San Bernardino culture because I did time in San Bernardino County. I ran into Delman Height Bloods. That's in San Bernardino. The California Garden Crips is in San Bernardino. The Magnolia State Bloods is in San Bernardino. You know, what is it called? The Little Zions, the Zions. I believe they was Bloods too. You got the five-time Crips. You got the five-time Crips. That's on the borderline between San Bernardino and Rialto. I met some 5 times. They was with the business in San Bernardino. Shout out to the 5-time Crips. You have PPHG, Pimp Player Hustler Gangster Crip. I ran into some PPHGs in the San Bernardino County Jail as well. Huh? I had a homeboy from Gilbert Street. If you from San Bernardino, shout out to Gilbert Street Bloods. I had a homeboy from Gilbert Street Bloods in San Bernardino when I did a county lid in San Bernardino County. So shout out to the Gilbert Street Bloods in San Bernardino. Shout out to the Delman Height Bloods out there in San Bernardino, the Inland Empire. I remember this dude from 5-time in the county jail. He was a reputable. He was a rider. Shout out to the 5-time Crips. He was a rider in the county jail, putting in work. Strong. With the business. Shout out to the 5-times. Shout out to the California Garden Crips. I had a homeboy from California Gardens in San Bernardino too. So I met a lot of Crips and Bloods from San Bernardino County that's with the business. I did time out there, bro. I know these dudes personally. You know? Hit the like button. You already knowing it ain't nothing. King Supreme. Hey, man, we're going to get up out of here, man. I think I done did enough today. We went in for damn near 4 hours, but I had to give you guys this content. I got to tell you guys the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat this like the LA black podcasters who refuse to tell the truth about these black and brown issues. King Supreme going to give you the facts. Realer than rap, no cap, giving you the hard-hitting facts. I'm about to here, man. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, one of the realest channels on the internet. Somebody that's telling you the truth without sugarcoating nothing. Tap in with King Supreme in a major way. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to get up out of here. Peace, everybody.